If they can make a $399 version that is basically the PS5 with more ray tracing and it can do all the AI stuff for next gen, I think that sells like hotcakes, and they have to do it in the current economic climate. Welcome to Broken Silicon, a gaming hardware podcast. I am your host, Tom, and today's lead sponsors are boot.dev. You can use code Moore's Law to get 25% off your first payment at boot.dev, and then also JLC PCB, with PCB starting at $2 and $123 in coupons there and $30 off 6-layer PCBs, and of course CDkeyoffer.com, where you can get Windows 11 Professional for $24. Colin, my friend, thank you for coming on once again. I'll jump right into it. I mean, you've been on 3 times before, but for those who have missed those episodes, who are you? Where are you from? And ultimately, what I want to know is, what are the most interesting types of stories that keep you enthusiastically continuing to do what you do?
Oh, interesting. Wow, we're really starting. Well, first of all, it's good to be here. Good to see you. Thank you for having me. Hope everyone out there is doing well. So I am Colin Moriarty. I am the owner and proprietor, let's say, of Last Stand Media, which is a popular fan-funded podcast network for video games and nerd culture. I began in the industry in 2002. I worked at IGN for many years before that. And I co-own a game developer as well, Lilymo, and we're actually releasing our next game in the coming days, Saint Slayer, on all platforms. So excited to be here. Thank you for having me. And enthusiastically continuing to do what you do. I mean, I think the industry has gotten so much more dynamic and interesting at the longer I've been in it. It's been 24 years this calendar year that I've been covering it. And I started in Web 1.0, and it was still kind of, the magazines were vibrant, and there was, everything was very PR managed and everything was very top down. Now we have people like us doing things in the trenches. There are constant leaks and innuendo and all these things happening all the time. So really, I'm actually kind of shocked, not really considering how many games are out there and how much money is spent on games, but at the same time, I'm shocked about how engaged I still am. I'm really not bored ever. Sometimes bored with the content more than the actual industry itself. And I've said many times, I feel like the industry happenings are often more interesting than the games themselves. So that's what keeps me coming back, is that the stories never stop.
Yeah, I think I couldn't agree more. And I often ask this because, especially compared to when I started Moore's Law is Dead, like at this point, I think like 8 years ago, geez. There were some people from back then that I used to know. A lot of them burned out. I see all the time people just kind of jaded, whether it's about like those people that say there's no good games anymore, which I could not disagree with more. There are tons of great games that still come out every year. Or the people that act like PCs, CPUs, GPUs aren't interesting. It's like there used to just be like AMD and Intel, and now Nvidia's is bigger than all of them. Apple makes their own chips. I mean, there's now Steam's maybe making a console. That's up for debate, actually, in my opinion, if they still are. But like, I don't think it could be more interesting. And I wonder if you have any thoughts on that. Like, if you've seen anyone you used to work with that kind of burnt out or think it's boring now because things have changed. Because it seems like you completely agree that actually, if you were interested in this for like the quirks of the industry and the developments, then it's really never been more interesting.
Yeah, I agree. And I agree also with what you said, Tom, and it's very important, is that like gaming has arguably never been better. We live in like what I've been calling a perpetual golden age. We used to have to wait often months for like for games that mattered in the retail release era. And there's a lot of slop and a lot of garbage out there. PSN has actually been cleaning up a lot of that stuff recently, which has been awesome. We've been covering that a lot. I'm not saying that every game is good. There's a lot of shit out there. There's more shit than ever. Sure. But I agree with you that there's always something to play. And plus your backlog, if you're into that. I don't really chronicle my backlog, but it's a mental thing, I guess. But you could literally just stop buying games forever new and just wait for sales. I was talking about this with my nephew, actually, who's like in middle school. He just got a Steam Deck, and he's like, "Oh my God, how you doing?" He's like, "I just wait for Steam sales." And I'm like, "Yeah, I mean, like it's never been cheaper. It's never been more accessible. There's never been more games. The games have never been better." So my thing is, It's a weird reference, but I've been watching a lot of Bob Ross lately, the painter.
Yeah.
And he was a prodigious painter, right? There were guys that painted 10 or 20 things in their entire career. He would paint 3 of the same picture, like his idea, then he would do it on TV, and then he would make a really perfect version for his books. He loved art, right? Like he loved painting. He loved the process. And I say that because I think people that burn out might not love it the same way. And that's okay. People come and go. There are seasons for everything in life. But I think that that's a major. So yeah, I've known people that have burnt out and bailed out. Often there's the journalist or media to developer or publisher pipeline as well. So people stay in games, but they get burnt out about covering games. They want to just be, working on one game at a time or one publisher at a time and all that. And I understand that too. It's a little shady, I think, from a coverage standpoint. It's a little disingenuous to do that, but that exists as well. But yeah, I've known many people like that. But I think that the love of the game, pardon the pun, is what keeps many of us involved. And on the hardware front, I mean, that's where I always come to you, because I've done this for so many years, and I'm ignorant on hardware. Like I don't actually, it's not that I even don't care. It's that I don't know enough to learn what those things mean. So it's like being the CEO of a big business. Like Strauss-Zelnick always says, like, I don't play video games, right? He knows people that plays, he has people, his lieutenants, taste make.
Unlike Jim Ryan, who played tons of video games.
Right. Yeah, he was a huge gamer. And well, I mean, how Herman Hulst games, how is that going?
Sure. That's a totally valid point. I made this point too about Xbox with I think Asha Sharma is her name now, in charge of Xbox, and they're like, well, Phil Spencer was a real gamer. I'm like, he ran Xbox into the ground. Maybe we need a manager in charge of Xbox.
Yeah, I don't buy that shit at all. Like where it's like you got to have a gamer, a lover. Like no, you don't. You need to have an ops person, like someone that understands how to be an executive to get to skid the wheels and get things going and clear the deck and hire the right people and listen to the right people and trust the right people and make the right decisions and all of that. It has nothing to do with. So I totally agree. I get so annoyed by that because again, Herman Hulst is a great example. Like PlayStation Studios is in awful shape and comparable to where it was. And it's like, well, you have the gamer. I mean, he co-founded Guerrilla. Yeah. So it's like, how's that going? I would pay a good amount of money to get him out of that position and get just a manager in there, but to each his own.
No, actually, I don't know that. I wasn't sure where we would go with this conversation. I never really do, but I actually want to push into that because that's something I haven't really explored as much on my show. It's more hardware focused, but like something that I did say on A Broken Silicon, because we did touch on the closing of Bluepoint. Me and my brother Dan did on the news episode, episode recently. And it's like, I was like pretty militant. I'm like, if Phil Spencer's fired, what the fuck is going on with Herman Hulst? I mean, Phil Spencer may have on paper be doing worse, but Xbox started from a much worse place. I mean, Concord alone should have gotten Herman Hulst fired, and I just don't understand. And there's so many easy things they could do. It was an idea me and you, I think, came up with together one time when you were on. Like, now they don't have Bluepoint, but you had multiple studios who could remake games. Like make the remaster of Killzone and Resistance. You don't need backwards compatibility. People would eat that up. And I just, there's so many different directions they could have gone, and they went in all of the wrong ones. At least he's seemingly admitting it. But like, I assume you agree. Like, this guy really should be fired.
Yeah, I mean, I've been calling for his head for a long time now. I mean, multiple years. And I've said before time and time again, and it just never really comes up. I don't see it come up. Is like he was promoted to co-CEO and then demoted. So because it used to be him and Nishino at the top. Nishino would be hardware and services. Hulst would deal with creative, and then like 2 months later, they're like, nah, and they demoted him, and he answers to Nishino. He answers to Nishino now. So I think my theory on this, and this is the kind of shit that you're a sports fan, right?
No, I am pretty far away from it, actually.
Oh, okay. All right. So, sorry. Well, I'm going to use the example. I'm sure some of your audience members will know out there. It's like every once in a while, the Miami Dolphins are a good example right now. Like they had a Tua Tagovailoa with their quarterback. They owe him $50 million for this year, but they just released him. They still have to pay him. He's just going to play for another team. It's like, this sucks. It's not working for us. We don't want you anymore. We know this is going to cost a lot of money, but we need to release you. I think that PlayStation is my read of this is that they're kind of pinching pennies probably when Hulst was promoted to co-CEO. I'm sure he signed. They're not at will employees at that level, anywhere near at will employees. So he probably signed a 5-year deal or something like that. He's paid millions of dollars a year, and they don't want to fire him because they're going to have to pay him. So I think what ends up happening, and it might even be the same thing with Phil Spencer and other people, is like,
sure,
before he left Xbox, is like, we'll just sideline you. You're not making any decisions anymore. you'll do like some work. We're going to owe you money. We owe you all this money one way or the other. It doesn't matter. There's no failure clause in your contract. But so that's the way I read it, is he's kind of playing things out, and they just don't want to fire him because they're cheap. And I think that some of the stuff, like even Concord, like when I talked to Shuhei Yoshida on my show, he was like, well, like I technically greenlit Concord, things like that worked out early in the generation. Returnal, Ratchet, Miles, all that kind of stuff were Shuhei's games. So now we've gone a long enough time where it's like, well, now this really is Herman Hulst's ship. Everything's kind of cleared out. And I am thoroughly unimpressed. And the thing that bothers me the most about it is he is directionally, or at least the structure of the organization was directionally right. They were right. I still believe that a lot of the moves they were making, if not almost all of them, were right. They just totally botched it. Like it was the worst execution possible. So it's like, yeah, games as a service. It's like, yes, of course. You should be spending billions of dollars in that space, but you don't make your own teams make them. You don't buy the teams that are making them in progress, assuming things are going to work out like they did with Firewalk and Haven. And who knows what's going to happen with Fair Games. They were like, yeah, I loved the acquisition of Nix's. I loved the acquisition of Bluepoint and Housemarque, obviously, when those things happen. It's like, or Valkyrie. It's like, yeah, Valkyrie, in-house contract studio, perfect. Nix's, they're going to port your games to PC, perfect. Bluepoint, they're going to remake games, perfect. But it's like, no, what we're going to do is Nix's is going to co-develop Saros. Bluepoint's going to make a God of War multiplayer game. Like that's, you know what I mean? So it's like the board was set. It was like, this is good. And you can see that things are changing radically behind the scenes with the recent closure of Dark Outlaw, because that team lasted 1 year, and that's all Herman Hulst. And that was them saying like, you know what, don't even bother. We're not scaling up. It doesn't matter what you're making. Just go. Like the 20 of you or whatever that made the studio, you go now. Things are different. They're slowly churning the ship. I believe they're doing the right thing. So it's not unlike what happened with Matt Booty, who is Herman Hulst's, corollary on the Xbox side. It's like he got promoted. I'm like, is everyone out of their fucking minds? like I don't understand. Like, what are you doing? It's very weird. Like Phil Spencer was not the biggest problem, actually. Matt Booty was the biggest problem. And their games were the biggest problem. But it's like, no, Phil retires, in quotes, whatever happened. Sarah Bond gets thrown out of a fucking moving train. Yeah. And Matt Booty gets promoted. It's like, okay, fair enough. So I just think the personnel issues are bad. It's like I don't know, man. The Sony thing's disappointing because what I keep saying in my audience is things are they're totally happy. PlayStation, I'm sure, wants it to be better, but they're like, we're good. We're making a ton of money. We're starting to write things down. Obviously, Marathon's not working out very well. We're going to eat shit on a lot of things. But what I keep saying is, imagine how good it could be. Like, no,
yeah, I mean, and
just
it's like
making it is not going to do it for much longer. I don't think.
And this comparison is probably going to come out of left field, but it's kind of like the U.S. military. It's like, well, look at all of these wins. It's like, well, yes, how could you lose? But like, are you doing things the most efficiently? Are we thinking the most strategically? Of course, you won. Whatever. It's the U.S. military. This is just not even fair. But like, don't learn the wrong lessons. And yeah, I mean, the promoting of Matt Booty is you worry they're learning the wrong lessons. Actually, on that note, though, foos your dues, right? And it says, oi, lads, fit like. This gen has seen Microsoft breaking the bank to acquire Bethesda and ActiBliz to ensure a good supply first-party exclusive to only then do a 180 and go all in on multiplat. Meanwhile, Sony went all in on games as a service and multiplat, only to seemingly axe most of their games as a service titles and revert to exclusives moving forward, or so, at least so it seems. Are both companies floundering, and how do you see their current strategies playing out over the next gen? PS Nintendo seems to just be watching from the sidelines, munching popcorn. Well, so I might argue, at least especially from the Sony side, we'll have to see on Microsoft, is maybe they're actually learning. I mean, look, it was stupid. They went in the wrong directions for a lot of things, potentially, but they are correcting the mistake, right? And like, you could say this is all a waste of money, but it's only if you're going to believe in sunk cost fallacies, right? I mean, at the end of the day, you need to go in the right direction for the next generation.
Yeah, I agree. And they already, if any canny viewer of their financials note that they already started writing down pieces of Bungie. So like they are prepared to write this whole thing down. And I don't know what they were thinking. That acquisition alone Hulst must have been the tastemaker on a lot of these acquisitions, even when he wasn't in a CEO position. He obviously is the head of their creative force in first party and second party. So the decision making, I think, was just spurious in the sense that I like that game For Loop that everyone seems to hate. That their second party game from Bad Robot or whatever that PlayStation is like invested in. It's like, this game may or may not work out, but that's exactly what you need to do. Is you need to like go to an outside entity, give them a couple $100 million and see what happens. It's what happened with Helldivers. And yeah, you might not control the means of production at the end. I mean, obviously Arrowhead is too big for their britches now, and Sony has no chance of acquiring them. But that's kind of the risk you take, as opposed to buying the cow, hoping you can milk it, and then the milk is spoiled, and then you have to put a fucking bullet in the cow's head, when really that wouldn't have been your problem. Like, the cow's health wouldn't have been a problem. It would have been like, oh, For Loop didn't work out. Okay, bye. Instead, it's like, oh, Concord didn't work out. Oh, we just spent a lot of money on this game, and we bought the team. Haven, Fair Games has never. No one's ever said a nice word about Fair Games. It's like they bought the team. Mm-hmm. It's like you didn't need to do all this sort of thing. So it is funny that the fortunes of the companies are changing, or at least what they're trying to do is change. I think Xbox's entire move, if they could undo the Activision, I've said this a million times, if they could undo the Activision Blizzard thing, I bet you they would. First of all, so many people that talk about video games don't know fucking anything about business. And the people that cheerlead this stuff don't get anything. They don't even understand fixed cost or anything. And when they were absorbing these studios, I'm like, you understand that like this isn't a lump sum, like one-time thing. Now they have to pay to operate these teams. Now they have to pay the $500, $600, $700, $800 million bill for every Call of Duty game.
And their business plan is going to be only putting it on the worst selling console to make money back. Well, that would make no sense to do that.
That's why that's the Activision, the Bethesda thing was more concerning from a PlayStation perspective than the Activision thing was, because when it happened, I'm like, I remember you and I talking about it. It's like, there's a 0% chance they're going exclusive with any of these games. Like, it's not possible. Like just think about what you're at. And even when they did release it everywhere, which they always were going to do, and they put it on Game Pass, they're like, oh, we lost hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yeah.
Now I'm like, all right, multiply that every year. And by the way, Call of Duty still has some cachet right now. I don't know that that's always going to be true. I mean, look at what's happening. People are talking about
Battlefield outsold it last year. Yeah.
Right. And Fortnite even is still the biggest game on PlayStation, but Epic is talking about how it's still, it's diminishing behind the scenes and all the rest. So it's like, they flew too close to the sun with Activision. They put all these eyes on the Xbox brand, and the people like came, the bean counters came in and were like, well, we're going to extract requisite value out of this. So yeah, they screwed up. I still like the move of trying to support Game Pass, but this goes into Matt Booty failing. It's like, you failed, dude. Like it all, and now the rumors are they're going to take Call of Duty off of Game Pass. And it's like,
they have to, I'm sure.
Yeah. I mean, that's the whole thing. Is like, I don't know what you thought was going to happen. So I think for as bad as Sony has done in some ways, they're still incredibly healthy. I don't know that Xbox is very healthy. And I don't also understand the use case for their upcoming hardware and all the rest. So there are just so many questions. I'm so eager to see more because I just don't understand what they're doing, actually.
Yeah, I mean, for Xbox Helix, if you ask me, we'll have to see. They've done things before where it looked like it was going to go well, and then at the last minute they announced some catch to their business model that makes the whole thing stupid. So until they do the full reveal and we know exactly how everything works, then we shouldn't celebrate really anything. But I think what they might be doing is what I thought they always should have done. And even some people from the original Xbox team will tell you that. Like, it was supposed to run Windows. It was always supposed to be a hybrid console. The original Xbox had an NVIDIA graphics card, I believe, or an AMD, or I think it was NVIDIA, and at least an Intel CPU. It was basically a PC. And if you do that and you just bring that console experience to Windows and use that as a bridge into Windows for gamers, that can work. It's never going to be like as big of a profitable business as Sony, but you're never going to, as PlayStation. But PlayStation won the console war. So I don't think you should really, like, it's the analogy I would make. It's all these people that were like, well, Killzone's going to be a Halo killer, wins the next Halo killer. There was no Halo killer. Uncharted 2 didn't compete directly, but it eventually outsold it, or The Last of Us did, right? And you don't kill something by doing the exact same thing. You just do something else that's kind of tangentially similar. And so I think a hybrid console really can work well, but there's still a lot of questions. And actually something that I did a whole video kind of concluding on, asking people to get out there if they call themselves journalists, is Xbox has not confirmed this runs Steam, and everyone is acting like the next gen Xbox runs Steam. So I don't know if you followed some of that stuff I've thrown out there, but I wonder, are you assuming it runs Steam? Because I'm going to be honest, I am not.
Yeah, I guess the assumption was, again, not being a technical person, is my assumption based on the rumors and at least the reporting until maybe much more recently was it was just going to be an open-ended PC running Windows, and thus it would run even Epic or whatever, GOG or whatever people want to like. So yeah, I assumed it would run Steam, but you know this. I mean, this was a big thing for me. Is like I don't understand the finances of that. Like I simply do not understand what people do not understand about what that means. It's like it's infuriating, Tom, because I think you and I both, and I'm not trying to blow smoke up anyone's asses. Like I think you and I both court a much more knowledgeable audience than the meme,
sure,
right? So there's not too much of a hullabaloo here about that, but like outside the walls of shows like this, people are like, who cares? It's so pro-consumer. And I'm like, what do you mean who cares? How the fuck do they make money? What are you, out of your mind? Like it actually makes no sense. But I still believe that they're going to do it because I don't think their idea is to keep Xbox alive. I think the idea, as we've said over and over again, is to offload people and make them into PC gamers, and maybe you acquire them on some sort of Microsoft store and you make things backwards compatible and you carry over the achievements and your saves and whatever in your ecosystem. But I don't see the win condition. And so I don't, but the Steam, dude, what you're saying, right, about Steam not being available on Xbox would make much more sense from a financial point of view. If they are really going to do that, though, understand that this thing is going to die. Like
that is my opinion.
Right.
Yes. Unless, well, and it probably still would, but I've been pretty outspoken. Like if you're a journalist, why is no one asking if it runs Steam? I can't find one goddamn interview of these journalists.
Interesting.
Like, what are you going to, Matt Booty, is Halo great or the greatest? Like, what are these fucking pandering interviews?
And now they're sending them all these things that Asha hand signed, like the cards, and like sent them this. Have you seen this? Like they sent them all these Project Helix sweatshirts. Fucking embarrassing. But
it's like one person you can put on the sweatshirt if you want. Ask them if it runs Steam. No one has asked them if it runs Steam. Everyone's assuming it. And this is something I broke down in my Xbox Helix analysis video, is if you actually break down their wording, they say very weird things. They say other leading storefronts. There's one leading storefront. And then you can say, oh, well, you don't want to mention Steam because it's your competitor. Okay, well, a way to nip this in the bud would just be to say, Xbox Helix will be designed to play all of the Xbox games and all of the PC games you already own. That would confirm Steam too. Mm-hmm. And that's a more fun way of actually saying it. They don't say that. They say other leading storefronts. And so, and I've talked to some developers about this. It was part of some leaks I did, but like if you look through, because they're kind of presenting how you're going to code for Helix already to developers. If you actually look at how they're like positioning this, like it's very interesting. They have this pipeline that I'm sure Gerard can put on screen here when he edits this, but like it shows building for Xbox, and the first node is build for Xbox on PC using a unified GDK. Okay, and then there's a little arrow to the handheld, and then there's an arrow to Xbox S and S, and then to cloud. And so in other words, they're saying that there is still some build for Magnus you have to do that is wrapped into the Windows Store. And that's intrinsic in the GDK. So I have this is where I put the tinfoil hat on. I have a suspicion that the way this is going to work is you build the game for this GDK and it runs on Magnus. And then it seems there's an extra package you program so that it would just generally work on all PCs. And they want you to use their package. So you put it on the Microsoft Store and not on Steam, so they get the cut. And I believe that's what they're going to do. And when it says other leading storefronts, easy. I think they partner with the ones no one cares about. EA, EA Play, it's now called, not Origin, EA Play, Ubisoft Connect. And what they'll do is they'll say, if you take less of a cut or something, or let us take a cut of it. Ubisoft, you have your store where you take 30%, or you take 100% of the games you sell. If they're Ubisoft games. Put it on our store and we'll take a 20% cut, and you can still take more of a cut than you would on Steam. And for that, we put you front and center on the Xbox Unified Store that doesn't include Steam. And then the question becomes, Do they even let you install Steam? Is this operating system locked down a tad? Because if they don't, that's insane. But even if they did, it doesn't change the business model. They're making a operating system that boots up, has their storefront, and then you probably have to click out of console mode, which will be cumbersome and clunky and suck. Probably not get as many of the optimizations to make the game run well, right? And, you can install Steam. You just have to Alt-Tab out of Xbox mode and go into this one. And this is a way for them to go, hey, if we even peel away 30, 40% of the sales that would be going to Steam, this is a win for us. And I do believe that's what they're going to do. Some version of that. I just... Otherwise, they would have said something else, or they would have said it's going to run Steam. And they have not said it's going to run Steam to this day.
That's interesting, man. I love that your mind's there because I do think people are taking it for granted. I would still assume that it will be some sort of open Windows thing. I don't know. Either way, though, well, two things. One, I'm glad you're asking these questions because I think a lot of people just gloss by this as if it doesn't matter. And I'm like, this is everything. This is literally the whole thing. It doesn't matter like how powerful the machine is ultimately or anything like that. It matters how you get the games.
Yeah.
And a console or a piece of hardware at mass, like a bespoke piece of hardware. So not like some sort of Dell Tower or something from like in 2002, like consoles and things like it, or gaming architecture is only made to sell games. That's it. And you don't sell it to, you're not like ROG or whatever that company is. It's like, oh yeah, we'll sell a couple 100,000 of these handhelds and we'll make a little bit of money.
Asus,
We're a small, like, it's like, no. You do this to sell games. And so it's funny because they're kind of against the wall either way, in my opinion. The whole strategy behind this thing is what I'm so interested about, because the Xbox console ecosystem has been made, and this is I want to be clear, it's not an insult, it's just is what it is. It's been made into the budget ecosystem, right? It's the cheapest console. People are very cost aware there. All they talk about is value. They don't talk about quality. All it is about value, price, right? So cheap console like the Xbox Series S and a game subscription. Now you're asking those people, which didn't really buy in that much to what you were doing then. Now it's like, no. Now you're going to buy a really expensive piece of hardware. That's going to cost easily more than $1,000, I assume. Mm-hmm. And we sold the most consoles we sold this generation was Xbox Series S. Now we're going in the exact opposite direction. So your cost constrained customer is now going to buy.
I brought this point up too. I can't believe because in the enthusiast circles, probably most of your fans own the Series X. My fans, if they have an Xbox, own the Series X because they're enthusiasts. A lot of them own PS5 Pros too, and like 5090s for their PCs. Most people do not have the higher end offerings. And I think people gloss over that 80% at first, I think it was. Now I've looked it up. It's like 70%, 65% of Xbox sales are the Series S. And so now the solution is to go to $1,000. This is why I thought the Steam machine was such an opportunity if it could be $500, because they could steal all of the mad Series S gamers. But yeah, I'm sorry. Go on. I just want to jump in and have that.
Nothing to be sorry about. I just the whole strategy really makes no sense, which is why I believe that it is just an offloading. And you and I have discussed this in the past too. Is like I think Microsoft's kind of doing right by their player base. They're not Dreamcasting this thing, and Sega in the spring of 2001 is like it's over, and by the next year, what were going to be Dreamcast games were ending up on GameCube, and it's not like that. They're saying like, we're going to do something where your games will be backwards compatible. Your achievements aren't going anywhere. We're still going to have Game Pass. Like, I actually think that what they're doing is good. It's just, I don't think people are being realistic about it, because back to the storefront question, don't you believe that they're damned if they do, damned if they don't? Because imagine this. They released this expensive boutique hardware that's like ostensibly a PC, but it's locked down. So all you can buy, it's like, well, that's a non-starter, dude. I mean, that thing is going to die. It'll sell maybe a few million units, whatever. You do the exact opposite, and you sell this PC like console with this Xbox shell on it, but you can do whatever you want with it. Then that opens up the question about like, okay, why would there are two things, and I'm going to say one thing from a developer's point of view as well. As a developer, is like, there are two things. Why would anyone buy a game from you when they can just buy it on Steam? And two, why would I make a game for you? Yes. And even if you had like this, like you were saying, the SDK, the GDK for Xbox is going to be
right, because this is where I jump in. Is I did talk to some developers, and they said actually they're trying really hard to make it tantalizing to go with the GDK, to making it the easiest way to program the game and have this pipeline with these enhancements where it works on Xbox, it works on PC, and it's easy to transfer to the other consoles. And that's going to be their play, is that they're going to make it more profitable and easier to program the game for them. And the hope is that once you've already programmed it to run on the Windows Store, you don't bother with Steam because it's already on PC. And by the way, a lot of developers don't bother with the Windows Store for the same reason Microsoft hopes they don't bother with Steam, which is when you have a Windows Store version and a Steam version, that's two versions of games you have to patch that over and over and over just to both be on PC. A lot of people don't know that. So that is their plays. They're actually going to try to make it work that well. And I had a couple devs say it's interesting. Actually, they are trying harder than we expected, and this might work. Although the overall consensus was we just can't skip Steam, though. In 2024, in the United States, back-end web developers had a median salary above $100,000. So it's a solid job if you can get into it. And it's pretty easy to get into it if you use the sponsor of this piece of content, boot.dev. That's right, this piece of content is sponsored by boot.dev that helps you learn back-end web development, whether that's with a focus on Python, SQL, and or Go. Boot.dev curriculum uses a hands-on RPG-like experience where you learn by building real projects, earning XP, leveling up, and fighting bosses. And that's because the smartest way to learn, if we're being honest, is just to never get bored. They take you from beginner to expert in a fun way through a hands-on experience that, if you put in the time with it, you will learn how to become a back-end web developer. And if you get stuck, there's a personal AI tutor, Boots, that has full context of your lesson and asks follow-up questions to nudge you back on track instead of just giving you the answer right away. They also have a lively Discord community for help as well if you're stuck on something. And they even recently added the training grounds, which allows you to grind infinite challenges to get as much practice as you need. And finally, all of their content is free to read and watch. Every course includes a free demo, and they have a 30-day, no questions asked refund policy. So support Moore's Law is Dead today by clicking on that link in the description and going to boot.dev. And if you want to use their service, make sure you use offer code Moore's Law, that's MOORESLAW, to get 25% off their entire first year on an annual plan. Once again, thank you to boot.dev for sponsoring this piece of content. And support Moore's Law is Dead by checking out boot.dev through the link below today.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a non-starter, and I think you're already seeing, I mean, Level 5 is the most recent developer. You know, they announced a bunch of stuff like they're bringing Professor Layton over and everything, and they're bringing it to PlayStation, but not Xbox. And this is happening with a lot of games because I think teams are slow. I'm very curious to see how my new game, Saintslayer, does on Xbox, because our games typically don't do great there. We sell the most on PlayStation. We're trying to like run up on Steam a little bit more because that's the place you really want to be. It's just unthinkable for me for anyone to say like, yeah, we'll forego Steam. It's like, no, when you have tight certification processes and you're running out of time and you have one associate producer and they're fucking running things up the flagpole in all these different places trying to like get things done, the first thing they're going to skip is that Xbox SKU, especially, and I would say exclusively in many regards, if they can just be like, if you have an Xbox, just buy it on Steam. And yeah. I've
already been telling people that. You probably should.
I don't know what my wife is an Xbox gamer, less and less so as time goes on, because I tell her, I'm like, I don't know you should be buying things here. You know, like this is the only ecosystem where I'm like, there's really a question. Your PlayStation's going to exist in 10 years.
Yes.
Like your next Switch, whatever they're going to call it, is going to be out in 10 years. I don't know about this. But it's so funny, man. I'm so glad to talk to someone like you, because I want to fucking strangle people sometimes when I see it. Well, I'm like, why isn't you're asking, right? Like, why isn't anyone asking the questions about Steam? I'm like, yeah,
basic question.
Like, why doesn't anyone understand that this can't be like that this, you sell a console, you might even eat some shit on the console to sell games on it. If you're selling something at cost, even an expensive $1,200 tower or whatever that will ostensibly play Xbox backwards compatible games, and then people are buying games on Steam, it's a non-starter. It makes no sense. It makes no sense. Like it's so fucking befuddling, you know? And there's other questions asked too. It's like, well, what does your PC ecosystem mean about Xbox Live?
Yeah.
What does it mean about your subscription to play online games? That's not a thing on PC.
I think that would have to go away. Right?
Exactly. And so this is exactly what I'm saying. So then it's like, you look at the numbers and the CFO and those guys are probably like, oh no, because you're just taking this repeat revenue and destroying it but you're doing what you feel like you need to do to survive. It almost, I don't know, man. I can't wait. I am so much more interested about the Xbox stuff than the PlayStation stuff because even though I am a PlayStation podcaster, just because I feel like we already really know what the PlayStation stuff's going to be, and we'll talk about that, I'm sure. But
not to toot my own horn, but I have pictures of it, and we know everything now. Like I put out all the details.
I toot your horn all the time, by the way. I don't know if you noticed, but
I do, and I appreciate it. But it's just like I agree because we know what it is. I mean, we know more about the PS6 than we ever knew about the other consoles at this point before their launch. It's really not. And we know they seem to be going with more exclusives. So we know the direction. With Xbox, there's a lot of questions still.
Yeah, it's a precarious and fascinating situation. And I ultimately think the Activision Blizzard acquisition stopped them from being a player the way that they want to be. And you can't kind of put the genie back in the bottle. The toothpaste isn't going to go back in the tube. Like all the things you signaled, all the failures, the years of stagnance. It's like there's not going to be this roaring people. It's not going to be like the Xbox to Xbox 360, which was like a major sea change for that brand. That ship has sailed. And even then in that generation, they still lost that generation. It just took time. PlayStation came back and ultimately sold more. So I'm going to be watching it with keen eyes, dude, because I'm just as an industry analyst and just a lover of games and a purveyor of the space. I'm like, yeah, this is the most fascinating story right now. And I can't, if they release a PC that runs Windows and Steam on it, I'm going to fucking laugh, dude. I'm going to be like, this is crazy.
Again, I think they might, but I don't think people should underestimate the play they're making if they go nuts with outreach to developers, make it the easiest to use their store for developers, give bigger cuts to all of the people. And then, yes, Steam can be installed on there. You can install Steam OS, which would be the most efficient way to play Steam games.
Yeah, that's exactly right. They could just wipe Windows off of it too. That's the whole other thing.
I don't think they'll let you, though. I don't think there'll be some DRM chip that's like, no. And I think if you want to download Steam, I think it's going to work just like a Series X. Pretty much, you boot it up, it's fast, it's easy to use it's easier to get into a game on like a PC. And then if you want to run Steam, you have to like pull open like a Windows command thing, and they're like, oh, sure, there's a whole, and they just make it take an extra minute to get into the desktop and another minute to boot up Steam. And then that's all it takes, that friction. They're hoping to stop people. I suspect.
But they're delusional. Really, if that's the case, like they're absolutely delusional. I mean, look at how Epic has just failed with the game store.
Yes. I just don't care what free games are on Epic. I don't care, man.
That's
Epic
the
sucks.
point though, right? Like, so it's like people would rather wait and not play Alan Wake 2 or whatever the example was than go and get it from you. Like, that's how much they don't want to be on your storefront. So then, like, we're talking about this tension, right? This friction. And it's like, people are going to be like, whatever, dude, I don't want to buy games from you. Like, it doesn't matter what you have. And by the way, this is the funniest part. I even was talking to Jez Corden about this on his show months ago. And he's like, I never even thought of that. And I'm like, so imagine Steam runs on this thing. Mm-hmm. So now you're going to give everyone the option to go buy your games on Steam and give them a cut for no reason. So in other words, your first party games are going to be treated like third party games. You're going to get third party treatment, like money. So like Sony puts their games on PlayStation and gets all of the money, right? It's like you're going to give everyone an option to go to Steam and just for arbitrarily give you 30% less. Mm-hmm. This is a genius move. This is definitely going to absolutely work out. Like it's fucking nonsense. You know,
if
like
that's what they do, the only way it works is if it's just because of how low their expectations are. Like the profit margins for one person, like Nvidia at this point is so rich. Like I think they've raised prices de facto, even though they won't admit it on the 5090. It's like a $3,000, $4,000 graphics card, and that thing probably has like 100, 200% margins. Whereas AMD is selling their cards generally, it's a bit up because of tariffs and a few things, but it's like $750 for their graphics card, which is weaker than the 5090, but it's not a fourth the performance, and that's because AMD can accept 20 to 50% margins, and Nvidia would be, kill themselves if they were making 20% margins. So I think there's a chance Microsoft might just know they can't pull a Dreamcast, they have to capture something, and maybe they make a 20% margin on the console, whereas Sony might sell it at cost. Like they still seem to be, from what I can tell as well. By the way, like the PlayStation might be $700. And then Xbox might be $1,000. They make a 10% profit on it, whereas most PCs make a 30, 40, 50%. So they're not losing money. But yeah, I my worry would be just that they fumble the implementation, because there's a way to do, because some of these companies like Asus, like they're selling like $2,000 pre-built desktops that are like half the performance of what Helix will be for, I assume, less than that. There's so much fat in the PC space right now that maybe it is ripe for Magnus to come or Helix to come in and just accept a lower margin to get people onto Windows from Xbox. And I think that could work. But what really worries me more is if they don't let you install Steam, because it doesn't matter what you charge, just people won't buy it.
That'll be the end of that.
Or if they rug pull Xbox Series X. I'm really concerned, like when it comes out, they're like, by the way, Series X will not work in 2028. Or like they just give you a year to upgrade, and then everyone will just be mad. And like a lot of people didn't get an Xbox One, a lot of my friends, because they were just mad at how 360 ended.
Yeah, 360 kind of went out with a whimper. So did Wii that generation. It was really, it's funny how that all went. Like Wii was around for years and like nothing was happening with it. It was strange. It's funny though. It's unimaginable. I don't know. I guess you can imagine. Maybe it's not unimaginable. You can imagine multiple directions that they would go in with this thing, and you've opened my eyes to a few possibilities, no doubt. It just seems like the loss conditions are fairly high, no matter what direction they go in. I do want to be fair and say that I think there are.
Well, this is Dunkirk, right? This isn't D-Day. They're retreating. They survive. Right. They win if they survive.
Right. That's exactly right. And yeah, good reference. And I do want to say that I think that there are some things working in their advantage. I just don't think it's nearly enough. And I think that one thing I want to say that's working deeply to disadvantage, apart from all the game stuff, is that, and I say this as a Windows consumer since the early 90s. Windows 3.1 was my first Windows machine, my 486 when I was a kid. Windows 95, Windows 98, Windows 2000, Windows CE, Windows,
Yeah, me too.
Like XP and all the Windows is fucking horrible right now. Horrible.
Yeah, especially comparatively to and there is competition now. Apple works and Linux is getting there. It really is.
And it's the first time in my life, I've talked about how I used Mac for a while when I was at IGN because we had MacBooks and stuff, but I've been a Windows consumer this entire time and my entire life. And it's one of the first times where I'm seriously being like, I can't do this anymore, man. Like this is so bad, so bloated, so inefficient, so crowded with nonsense. I think you and I have talked on a previous episode about how I have this idea of like Windows Classic. I wish they would just do something like that where it's like, and even charge a shit ton of money for it, but just be like, this is the version of Windows. Like we'll keep it updated, firewalled and all the rest, but like it's just the bare bones, almost Windows 95 or 98 style experience. Nothing, no Copilot, no anything. Like you can really remove things. It's not just shadow phantom removing of elements and all of the rest. It's so on one hand, Windows is awful and they're going to be like, yeah, do everyone want to play game on Windows? So it seems like kind of a weird time to do that. But the pricing, I can't help but Microsoft still has an economy of scale that most companies don't. Sony definitely has a higher economy of scale, though they are a smaller company because they are an electronics manufacturer, but
they just know how to do it better.
Right. Yeah. They have good old, you know much more about this than I do, relationships and knowledge and people, and they know what to do.
I mean, and just anecdotally, people at AMD, I've said this out before, like them more. Like they feel like, and look at how Mark Cerny talks. He sounds like he might as well work at AMD. I mean, they feel like colleagues, like there's give and take. Microsoft, the way I've described it's kind of like V for Vendetta, just screaming on the big TV for AMD to do stuff because they're the smaller company. And so just in general, people kind of like working with these other companies more, it seems.
Yeah, that's interesting insight.
And that does matter. It does matter. That's the stuff behind the scenes you don't see. Like when people are like, oh, why did Hitler not awake during World War II? He's on meth. No one talks about that. Like, or like a king killed his brother. Why? What were the machinations? He was drunk. Like there are these human factors in history that do affect the way people do things and how history pans out.
Oh, totally. I think central to every organization is the human element, no doubt. From the biggest companies to the smallest companies. I think that the one thing that I want to give them credit for, and it's not even credit, I think they could probably take advantage of this, is what you were talking about, which was margins. And this is something that even I know, and you had said, and that I don't think a lot of people consider, is how you make money on computers. So like when Dell would sell a computer, or they still sell computers, but like when they had that mass market, you remember like the commercials, like, dude, you got to get a Dell kind of. Yeah. And like I went and built a Dell online in like 2002. It was awesome. And they ship it to your house or whatever. It's like they're making a 50-40% markup on the computer, and then your relationship with them is basically done, right? Mm-hmm. Maybe you get Dell support or some bullshit, but like they made their money on you. If Microsoft's economy of scale and their deep pockets allow them to withstand, like you were saying, a much smaller,
right,
or a non-existent markup, then
even just 10% compared to what other people would charge might
then
be
they
enough
could
at their
conceivably
scale.
have the cheapest computer of that power, right?
Right. And that's what I think of it as. And if they accomplish that, by the way, that'll be like a cannonball hitting gaming PCs that is sorely needed right now.
But this is don't you believe that this is the conundrum? This brings us right back to what we were talking about. It's like, all right, so you have the most attractive price point for the power differential that you're offering, right? But now there are two directions. It's the things we were talking about. It's a lockdown computer. That really is just an
degree,
Xbox, right?
Yeah.
That's a non-starter. So then it's not worth anything to anyone. Or you have a wide open computer, right? And then you're not going to make any money on it. So the margins you were making are all you might walk away from a majority of the machines you sell. At which point, let's say at cost or 10% or even 20% markup seems insufficient. This is why I think it's a catch-22. It's like, I don't know. Like, those are the two major questions. And really the thing we need to know first is the nature of the machine. And once you know about the true nature of the machine, then you can kind of prognosticate how it's going to do on the market. But I think either way, and this is what I was saying earlier, damned if you do, damned if you don't. Like, I think that they're in a tight position. Now, I'm not saying Sony's in a good position either, because I don't know that they are, but for the next gen hardware. But they have a better problem, which is that people like the current machine too much. That's not a problem for Xbox. Right.
No,
so
that is not. Like, I almost laugh at the pipeline. Like, use our GDK to make it for Helix and then PC, and then third place is Series X. I'm like, I don't know how many developers are even going to care to port games to Series X in 2 years.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be a very, dude. I mean, if some of the sales that come out about like how games sell on the machine, I know Resident Evil Requiem seem to have sales numbers like by console from Alinea Analytics, and the one that sticks out to me a lot is Mafia, the Old Country, where that game sold like 150,000 copies or something on Xbox. And I'm like, I don't know, man. That's not nothing. But like, that's a whole pipeline within Take-Two that has to deal with that. And you're going to have to really make it enticing for them to continue down that road. You bring out this new PC and Xbox is abandoned as a console, like Xbox Series S and X, then you're talking about a fraction of that. And that's why, again, I'm hoping, I would love for our game to sell big on Xbox, but I think most people know that like the only chance of doing really well on Xbox is to be in Game Pass. That's it.
Yeah, I was going to ask, because you do have a couple studios, you might be able to tell me like how well your Xbox sales do. But of course, your biggest podcast, your flagship is a PlayStation one, so there's going to be a correlation there. Because when I speak to developers, some of them say they're actually quite mad and concerned with Xbox right now, because I put out a leak like there are more updates coming to the dev kits for PS4 every year than there are to Series X at this point, which makes you worry they're preparing to rug pull that console. And they're like, yes, it's a fraction of our PlayStation and Steam sales, but I guess I shouldn't say the exact number, but it's like hundreds of thousands of dollars a month this game is making still. And it's like, it's not nothing for us, you know? We don't want that to just go away and then hope everyone gets it on Helix.
Yeah, I think I was just looking at the sales numbers, like the Xbox version is usually the second or third best selling of all of our games. Mm-hmm. Sometimes Switch will be better, but not typically. And then we don't sell well on Steam, which is again where we really want to pick up the pace. So for us, it's like because some people ask me, it's like, well, you seem so critical of Xbox, and I'm like, I am, and they're like, well, why do you want to be there? I'm like, because I want to be where the players are. I'm not a first party studio. What are you, out of your mind? Like, I'm not gonna.
You're critical doesn't mean you're a hater. I mean,
yeah, and also it's like, I'm going to sell my, I mean, anyone who's listened to me knows I don't want to make an exclusive. Why would I want to do that? I mean, they can pay me a lot of money and I'll make it an exclusive, but why would they want to do that? So of course I want to be everywhere. I just hope that I'll be very interested to see how this new one does on Xbox and hope for the best there. But I don't know. They're in a bind. I mean, they're in a true bind, and I don't think there's any true success like outlet for it. I think it's a matter of like if it does well enough to hang around or if it dies. And that's kind of there. I think people think it's like, oh, this could be a roaring success. I'm like, I don't know, man. I just think the Xbox kind of ecosystem is truncated in small parts and little city states, vassal states, and it's not enough. People are not going to abandon PlayStation, and they're certainly not going to abandon Steam. So, like, how many people do you think go from Xbox to PlayStation versus PlayStation to Xbox? I bet you it's.
Oh my God!
I bet you it's 10 to 1.
I can tell you, they've talked about this openly, but the worst generation to lose, they say, was the Xbox One generation, and I can't tell you how friends I had before PS4, it was already happening. A lot of people went from 360 to PS3 because you had all the Killzone and Uncharted and just yada, or one of my favorite games that no one played, Mag, like all of these games. And so eventually a lot of people I know back then kind of felt like they had to have the PS3 because there was just so many games they were missing out on. But nonetheless, you could have said, at the start of that gen, mostly 360, some Wii, some PS3. By the end of that gen, 50-50 PS3. No one was playing the Wii anymore in 360. And then all of my friends that were on 360 switched to PlayStation, except for one, which I'll get into it. There's a funny story. He regretted it immediately, just switched to PC. I don't know anyone who switched from anything to Xbox that gen. And I know some people kind of went back. I have a couple friends with Series X, but it's like maybe 20% of them did then. And so they're still probably, the sales are what, like they're 30, 40 million sold, like a third as much as the PlayStation or less than half. I think the numbers speak for themselves there.
Yeah, and I think maybe I'm not so confident in this anymore now that the prices keep going up, but it seemed like though time adjusted, PlayStation 5 was a couple million or a few million behind lifetime sales, that it would end up selling more than PS4. So PlayStation is, and this is a much more expensive console that they're making an enormous amount of money on comparable to PS4. So I think they're going to be perfectly happy with that, even breaking the same as PS4. But selling over 100 million consoles in a generation where everyone's saying console gaming is dying. This is one of the things, and this is what makes me sound most fanboyish, I think, to a lot of people. But it needs to be said, is like, it's unfair to say that like a space is dying when one of the companies is the one that's not pulling its weight and the other company seems to be selling exactly the same amount of units. Yeah. So of course there's going to be some differential. It's not really fair to blame the whole space for it.
The market peaked with the 360 or whatever because there were three big competitors and all of them broke. All of them were less, especially the 360. I know it's not really comparable, but like you had to replace your console and that was the longest gen as well. So yeah, of course gaming peaked then. There were three consoles and they were all successful.
Yep. That's exactly right. It was exactly the only generation where there were three high selling consoles and we really actually won. It certainly didn't make, and that's what everyone, the letter you read earlier was like, oh, Nintendo's standing in the corner, like eating its popcorn. It's like Nintendo wished it made as much money as Xbox and PlayStation did. Yeah. Not for nothing.
I was going to say, when people say we won, I'm like, well, I guess it's just a leaderboard and how many consoles you sell, but I think the attach ratio for games was like a fifth or a tenth of, it was a quite a bit less than PlayStation. And so arguably PlayStation won if they sold almost as much as the Wii and consoles, and yet people are buying 4 times the games or something insane.
Exactly. Many times more games and interaction. And I don't know. Anyway.
The one thing I'm going to pivot now to more PlayStation stuff instead of Xbox, but like one thing I will say, because I want to say something positive, is that from what I hear behind the scenes and from what I see is Microsoft realizes everybody hates them. Like they are starting to, I don't know if you've seen these stories, they're starting to quietly strip Copilot out of a lot of apps. Like they might actually be reneging on this AI push with Copilot, which would be awesome, I think. And they are seemingly trying to de-bloat Windows now. Like they're finally going to unify the UI, and it's so weird when you use Windows 11. Most of it looks modern, and then you click something like a Windows 95 menu opens. It's like, how have you still not modernized? They are actually doing that now, and they are actually pushing to have it run more efficiently, trying to take the things they learned from building a console and translating it into their operating system for PC. So what I will say is the bullish case for Helix is it's not going to beat PS6 in sales. All right, let's just stop pretending. But what it could do is stop the bleeding from last gen, make sure Sony has competition, and maybe make Windows work better. Like if Windows sales are falling apart, which they are, it's collapsing. Windows is doing, if it, again, wasn't for some AI bubble, Microsoft might be in a lot of trouble right now. Like Windows sales are falling apart. People hate Windows. Plus you got Apple's MacBook Neo that's just destroying the OEM market. And then over, so they see Xbox falling apart. Maybe they actually have to make it work and that both will become better. That is what I would hope for. Because I think people are, of course, going to call us fanboys, but I'm like, no, I don't want them to fail. And that is how I think they would succeed. But boy, is that a tightrope walk right there to make that succeed.
Yeah, it is a tightrope walk. And I also just think it's like, I think this needs to also be said, to be fair, on the other side of it is, just because Microsoft doesn't compete with PlayStation doesn't mean that PlayStation has no competition. Right?
100%.
Like, I don't, I talk to a lot of people that work at PlayStation and at the studios and all around the industry. And I can't speak for any individual person, and I don't know what they're saying at the highest rungs and all the rest, but like, you don't necessarily hear very much about competing with Xbox anymore, and you kind of haven't for years. I mean, I think that like it's fairly obvious that Sony is most concerned about Steam and to a lesser extent Nintendo. I think they're going after both of them in their own way. And I think that they kind of have reshifted focus to other fronts, you know? So that's the one thing that I feel like it's like, just because Microsoft isn't a competitor anymore in the space to the extent that they were beginning in the early and the mid 2000s and the aughts, doesn't mean that Sony's just kind of running roughshod over the industry. It's like, no, like there's other, like Nintendo is a staunch competitor. Clearly Sony wants a piece of them from multiple perspectives. I think Sony realizes they ceded the entire Japanese market basically to Nintendo and the handheld market globally to Nintendo. And these were massive mistakes. The latter much more significant. And then of course, what's going on with Steam and how you and I don't know how if we feel differently about this, but like I'm almost confused of what Steam is doing to an extent. And I think that they're the biggest threat to PlayStation. I think they're the biggest threat to everybody. And what's so ironic about that, first of all, it's a fucking exceptional service. Exceptional.
Yeah.
It's not good. It's not great. It's exceptional. It's one of the great apps I've ever used on my computer. It's one of the steadiest, most robust, fairest, and equitable. Just get discounts constantly, get your money back after 2 hours. It's crazy how good it is. And if any player in the game industry, I don't mean player of games, but player like in the corporate world isn't paying attention to that, they should. And I think it's surprising that Valve is doing anything, because to me, I'd be like, everyone just comes to us. We don't need to we don't need to do anything. And it's not even a money risk thing. It's like, why are you even bothering? I think you and I did have this conversation about the Steam machine, right? About like, who are you selling this to? And if you're selling it to the existing Steam user, then you're kind of wasting your money, right? Like,
so my argument is they always need like a gun pointed at Microsoft under the table, because Microsoft's tried before. The long-term plan of Games for Windows Live, which is an outrageously bad service, was that eventually they wanted to kind of make it so Steam doesn't work on Windows, so you have to buy stuff from Microsoft. And I get why they would try that. They're like, God dang it, it's our operating system. How are we not making software sales when Mac's over there with iOS just making all the money in the world? And it's like, it's because you fucked it up, man. And I'm sorry, the ship has sailed. And because of that, the open platform is why people use Windows. And so you're just kind of married to that. But they always want to try to push Steam away. I think they're going to try a very concerted effort to do it again with Helix. I do think Valve should take that seriously. So I don't know when they caught wind of what, or if they're just good at planning, but I do believe Steam Machine is an insurance policy for if Microsoft does try to push them off again, they can go, oh, really? Well, guess what? Here's the full distro for SteamOS. It comes with its own, word processor, and we're now going to give it for free so people never use Windows. And we're going to have the Steam Machine over here as the cheapest gaming PC that also doesn't need to run Windows. And I think it's an insurance policy in that regard. And also, I think they just see an opening. I told you, I think Steam Machine's just a Scrapyard Wars episode where they got the stuff AMD couldn't sell from 3-4 years ago. It's really old stuff in it. And they're like, well, just like the Steam Deck, where they got something Microsoft didn't end up using for Surface. That's what they used in the Steam Deck. Like, well, this is sitting here. We might as well take advantage of it. And they're going to try to push us out of PC. So let's just see if we can steal all the Series S people. Now, a year ago, and I did, it was one of my best performing videos last year, I would have said, this sounds awesome. Steam Machine's going to do great. Seeing their handling of RAM shortages tells me they might be entirely out of their depth. Was it Donnie and the Big Lebowski? Like, you're out of your depth.
You're out of your depth.
Like, that's,
phone drinking, dude.
It's April. Where is it, guys? Shit or get off the pot.
Yeah, I think they're caught. This is exactly what I'm saying. Is like, I wonder internally if they're like, why did we ever even bother? Mm-hmm. We didn't need to do any of this. Like, we've wasted money. We obviously we're flush with cash. That's really why matter. I
say they should just launch it. They have the money, do the launch. Maybe don't keep making it if you can't do it affordably.
Right.
But you have to.
Right.
At this point.
You got to respect it in a way. Like, as a businessman, I kind of do respect the non-stagnant business. That's like, yeah, we basically are just a permanent fixture. And as long as our service works, which it always does, and we've watched Epic fall on its sword and we've done all this kind of shit, it's like, I could just sit here fucking twiddling my thumbs forever. And so I do appreciate them making that effort, but at the same time, I don't even know. I do appreciate that they did it, but I wonder if they thought it all the way through from just a business standpoint, where it's like, you understand why you sell consoles, right, Valve? Like, you understand why they're sold. You sell hardware to get people onto your storefront. If you're selling them to people on your storefront, you already had them. Mm-hmm. You didn't need to invest in them at all. So I question from that perspective. I ultimately think it probably will come out, but I think the
longer they wait,
they wish they could undo it. I'm sure. I mean, or I don't want to say I'm sure. The global economic climate is so tumultuous, and PlayStation's experiencing this too.
Oh yeah.
To a degree that's actually much heavier because everything rides on PlayStation there. I think that like plans well laid and well made over the last few years are coming up for naught because of these economic headwinds. But I don't know, man. It's interesting to think about the new landscape of Nintendo, Valve, and Sony, and if there could even be a new competitor. What's funny about Microsoft, and I think you're absolutely right, is I've read so many great books about them. And if you read specifically about lawsuits in the 80s, they were this small d democratized, like, they blatantly stole Windows from Mac OS, and they were, and they inversed everything, and they were in the look and feel argument or whatever, but they were just like, everyone runs on everything. And and this was like the big box CD-ROM era of like things running and it worked or whatever. And they kind of made their bed. And it's hard to go back and say like, oh, now we want an iOS for ourselves. And it's like, that's kind of not what your business is built on, unfortunately. Like, you didn't read the tea leaves right. And I don't know that Steve Jobs did anything more than necessarily stumble into proprietary. You know what I mean? Like, they always kept things proprietary.
I mean, you could say the same of a lot of people. Like,
right.
Elon Musk's supposed to be a genius. He didn't make the first Tesla. He bought a company that had already made cars for like 10 years. Like that was the hard job. And the one car he made sucks. Like, no one wants it. Like, there's a lot of these tech people, I think, that just stumbled into success and they won't admit it.
Right. Like, I think that Apple's maintained from the Apple II, Lisa, Mac days all the way through to Power Mac and all of the rest, this proprietary but shrinking ecosystem. Mm-hmm. And it was antithetical to what everyone else was doing, but they stuck with it. And I don't think they realized that what would end up happening is that everyone would have a fucking iPhone in their pocket.
Nope.
And they would be, but they just kind of stuck with it. And then, we won. And I just,
to be fair, he did come up with the iPhone though, Steve Jobs.
Of course, he came up with all these things, the iMac and the iPod and all. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, I don't think they realized its level of ubiquity. No. And I think that Microsoft made its bets early on ubiquity and didn't realize that might collapse as well. So I think they're kind of, you live by the sword, you die by the sword. And both of them, I think, learned that in their own way. I mean, Apple was a quarter away from dying in 1995 or 2 quarters away. So
so a lot of companies too, like AMD. I love to tell that, like, AMD almost went out of business. They almost bought by Sony to just become the PlayStation design arm of Sony. Like that. That's how. But there's so many companies. I think people don't realize that they're this close. They're that close.
It's fascinating. I love it. I love this kind of stuff, man. My bookshelf is full. I got really into in the early to mid aughts and through college, and then in my career at IGN, into just reading about like Silicon Valley history, and it's, for as little as I understand and know the tech, I understand and know a lot more about the business of the 70s and 80s, especially in Silicon Valley and into the 90s. And it is crazy. Like the companies. One of my favorite things is Yahoo buying GeoCities for $5 billion. Mm-hmm. That's $5 billion in 1999. That's like insanity. Like just the bets people were making and the things that went off the reservation. Yahoo's fall itself. Yahoo really should have been like the Google of our era. It's just so interesting to think about. So I think a lot of these companies just make bets. They don't even really know. Like, no one can really know what's going to happen. And then you find yourself in this serendipitous position. And then you take advantage of it. Apple has done an excellent, I'm a satisfied Apple customer completely.
Mm-hmm. Well, and to be fair, as much as people would probably say I'm some hater here, I don't actually. I have owned a MacBook Air, which I liked. I don't use an iPhone. I have Android and I use Windows. I'm just, despite what some might think, not biased and willing to say when someone's clearly doing something better. This piece of content is brought to you by JLC PCB. Innovation starts with an idea, and JLC PCB helps you bring your ideas to life. With their one-stop manufacturing service, you can get everything you need in one place, whether that's PCB fabrication, SMT assembly, 3D printing, and CNC machining. And yes, from rapid prototyping to full production, they handle every step with precision, speed, and at a reasonable cost, especially when it comes to their 6-layer PCBs. On that last point, their 6-layer PCBs allow fast, clean routing and avoid the struggle of squeezing signals onto their usual 2 or 4-layer boards. More routing means more freedom and faster development, fewer redesigns, and therefore quicker project completions. Spend less time fighting routing limits and more time building the actual project. And 6-layer PCBs are usually expensive, but JLC PCB offers one of the most affordable industry prices. So whether you're a maker, an engineer, or a global hardware company, JLC PCB empowers you to turn your ideas into a reality faster and smarter. Support Moore's Law is dead through the link below. Yes, just clicking on the link below helps the channel a ton, but obviously if you need their services, you can also get a really great price on 6-layer PCBs as well if you follow the directions and use the offer codes and coupons below. So please support Moore's Law is dead at JLC PCB today. All right, I want to shift to this here. Speaking of, Shifting Pixel writes in, it says, with Sony raising PS5 prices by a considerable amount, is that a strategy to get enough consoles for the GTA 6 launch this fall at a stable price, with only the PS6 delivering a real price drop with a series of style launch? So I'm guessing you'll get, I think there's too much conspiracy theories around the price. The price is up because of inflation and supply shocks. Like, guys, there's no 3D chess move to get you to want the PS6 for more money, or it's just more expensive to make the PS5.
Yeah, I agree. This, from an economic point of view, everyone could just, I always encourage people, I encourage my own audience, like, go read the financials. You'll have to kind of learn things. I've learned a lot. I went to school for history. I had to learn a lot of stuff, and I love finance and all of that. And there's still things I'm like, I always have my little fucking yen calculator out and trying to figure, because everything has to be reported in this fucking arbitrary, massively inflated currency instead of normal numbers. But go read and you'll realize that there's really no purpose for Sony to turn the screws on anyone, from both a PlayStation level and an entertainment level and an electronics level. Even with them spinning out to TCL and all of the rest, like, they're in good shape. I think, the idea that they would disrupt PlayStation 5's, sales trajectory by arbitrarily needling the audience is nonsense.
This late in the gen.
Yeah, it's like, and everyone knows that this is unprecedented. I think sometimes people are like, well, canny corporate operators can be like, well, it's unprecedented, so we're going to take advantage of it and do things under the guise of this. And I'm like, yeah, but that's something. Well, I mean, big companies that make lots of money do that, but I'm like, that's something you do when you're desperate. You have a good thing.
Yeah.
So you want to sell it for as little as possible, but you can't eat shit. And if the new component pricing is like, inflation is one thing. I think inflation's kind of baked in at this point. The unfortunate thing about inflation is it ate up all of the price increases that were made to make things more stable. So there's going to need to be more price increases, which is why the $80 game, the $80 game already exists. Outer Worlds 2 they attempted to do that with, and I wonder what's going to happen with Grand Theft Auto. But I think you're absolutely right. Like, Sony is probably freaking out.
Yeah.
I mean, I imagine the PS6 is they're probably like, we have no idea how much this thing's going to cost. And,
well, that's why I recently put out a not really a leak, but I reanalyzed my pricing expectations, breaking down what the bomb would cost now. My conclusion was, even if they bought everything right now, which would be profoundly idiotic, they're not going to buy their components right now, it would still probably be below $1,000. So we should probably calm down about that. Having said that, I could see the path to like 900, and that's got to scare the shit out of them. I mean, you cannot launch a new gen. And that's why I say they won't launch it at 900. They will find a way. They'll eat shit for 1 year like they did with the PS3. I do not believe they would. It would be financial suicide to launch a new gen at that price. They just won't.
I can't. This is why I think there is, in all my time in the industry and even as a player, I can't envision this next generation. it doesn't seem like anyone wants it, right? Like we talked a lot about PS3 and dude, people were so ready to get off the PlayStation 3. Like people
terrible.
like couldn't stand it at the end. All the great games were there.
It was unusable.
Yeah, it was horrible. I mean, I go back and use it sometimes. I'm like, I can't believe this. Like this is, it's not like it's decaying over time. I'm like, this is the way it was. Like it doesn't work. And people were ready to get off it. And by the end of the PS4 generation, people were kind of ready to go on PS5. Like the PS5, the PS4 Pro, I was wrong about it. I was like, this is going to be a disaster. This is a mistake. They're distracting things, whatever. It's like, it's like, no, people want a bigger power differential. There's more we can get out of these consoles. We can expect 60 frames. We can do all these kinds of things. And now I see it and I'm like, dude, I run the biggest PlayStation podcast in the world. No one wants it. No one wants it. It's not that people aren't going to go get it.
Didn't they say that last gen though? Didn't they say that about the PS5? Because that's my memory we were already talking by then, I believe too. My memory was the comments were full of, we don't need a PS5. Everything's expensive. Actually, I think the situation, COVID shortages, is very similar to now.
Yeah, I think I do agree with you that existed, but I think maybe we're talking about two different things in that was the economic reality when the console launched, but not the feeling of, think pre-COVID when the economy's booming and, you know, the financial situation is stable and people are kind of looking ahead and being like, yeah, the evolution of the Moore's law of this technological advancement is we're going to need a new console and it's about time. The PS2 to PS3 was interesting too, just because they were a year late to getting it to market and things were accelerating to an old degree then still. The jump from DVD to Blu-ray, for instance. We're still running on Blu-rays, you know, and the PS6 will still run on Blu-ray. So like little things like that. I think actually the DualSense was a major revolution, something that I was kind of befuddled by at first. And then the more I play it, like I just went back and played Returnal. I'm like, this is an amazing piece of tech. I don't get the emails. Like, you know, we get hundreds of messages a week from the audience to put in the show. And like, no one's saying like, I can't wait. People are going to be there and they're going to buy it and they're going to announce games for it and whatever. And it's going to, the whole trajectory will change when they actually start talking about it. But it's hard for me, Tom, to like envision how this is going to work. And it even, I wonder, oh, I'm sorry, you're going to say something.
No, I'm glad. See, this is one of the reasons I love talking to you is because you bring in a different audience and a different perspective. And it's something I often ignore. I'm excited for everything. I'm a dork. They've got graphics cards and consoles behind me. I've got engineering samples of things that like aren't even supposed to be there. Like there's all just, I love it. I want everything. So I don't pay attention to it. But in my community, it's the opposite. They could not be more excited about the PlayStation. Now, maybe it's because, and I do believe this, I think we should start talking about this soon. I believe the PlayStation 6 is much more technically interesting than the PS5 was. The PS5 gave us the SSD, of course, and a fast one, faster than most PCs even to this day, which was great because, I mean, what did GTA 5 take like 10 minutes to load on PS4? I mean, good Lord, it was terrible. So like, thank God for that and yada, yada, yada. Like, it still kind of shocks me, by the way, when I load RE9 and it's just like done. Like it's
awesome.
It's amazing. So, but I think the next gen is going to be far more interesting, or at least it has far more of a potential to. And so if you're more of a hardware dork, you see the specs that I've leaked and you go, oh, this is far more interesting than PS5 was a big PS4 with an SSD. That's kind of what it was. Now, it was still capable of doing all these things better. You know, in some ways, I think I actually found the PS5 more interesting than the PS4. The only reason the PS4 was interesting is that it was cheap. Let's be honest here. It really didn't do anything the PS3 couldn't do. It got us that what I would call open world bloat, where everything had to be an open world game for some goddamn reason. Like, but I actually think the PS5 was more interesting. But I think the PS6 is a profound opportunity, if they do it correctly, to make consoles far more interesting again. And I listened to the recent Sacred Symbols where there's more evidence that Sony's moving away from third party. And I can't think of a better generation to do it. But I don't know. I've been talking for a little bit here. It sounds like you might be a little surprised that like some people actually are very excited. Now, to be fair, I think a lot of these people are PC gamers. And I heard this on Sacred Symbols. I think Chris Reagan or someone brought this up. A lot of PC gamers are all of a sudden buying PlayStations because PC is so out of whack right now.
Right. And
I think that's where some of this PS6 excitement comes from, is once you get to like 4K 120 frames per second, even PC gamers are happy and they might flock to PlayStation if Nvidia is trying to charge $5,000 for a graphics card.
It's funny you say that because that game Mouse PI for Hire is coming out in a few days, like that black and white shooter. It looks really, really beautiful. and it will run at 120 frames on PS5, and I'm like, this is awesome. I mean, not that it's a boomer shooter kind of, but it's like
Sure.
we're getting to these kinds of frame rates and they actually work on console. It's like, I don't even think I need that. I need 60 and I'm kind of golden, like a solid locked 60, and I'll be golden. But it is surprising to hear that, because what I hear from the software perspective is there's something incomplete about this entire generation. And I can understand that from a perspective of first and second party games. I think that PS3 and more so PS4 kind of resolved those generations with a real run of high quality first party games that I think PS5 will also receive. Right? Beginning with, Wolverine, and Saros is coming out, and Tokon for people that care about that, and Intergalactic, and so on and so forth, and the new God of War game and whatever. So I think that'll happen too. But there's like definitely this feeling, and I think about it all the time, Tom. I'm like, what is it? Like, there's this feeling that no one is satisfied, and that new hardware is not going to be the solution to like people's feeling about the failure for PlayStation to differentiate this generation in a meaningful way for them. And I understand. I just think that I'm a broader minded in that. And it's what I was saying earlier in the show. I just kind of am bombarded by games where like I play only on PlayStation. I love playing on PlayStation. That's where I play. But just on PlayStation, I mean, there's a fucking billion things to play. Like I don't even know. Like I have to just say no and even isolate these things in my mind that it's like, oh, this is announced. I'm never even going to get to that. I'm not even going to pay attention to its existence. Like, so I think people are very focused on like what differentiates, because it's like you can play Elden Ring on everything. You can play whatever Marathon on everything, even if it's a PlayStation game. You can do all these things. And I'm like, yeah, but what about the holistic experience? And yet I don't feel like a lot of people see it that way. And I just get that kind of feedback. Like it's so hard for, I don't know if you listen to this on Sacred. It's so hard for me to imagine how this is going to go at these prices and with this economic tension, that I started asking, and this is from a complete place of ignorance, right? And I wonder what you think of this. I'm like, how much would it cost for Sony to just not release it? To say like, we are just going to stick with the PS5 for another couple of years, and we will redesign the PS6 and under new economic influences and make it better and make it cheaper, whatever. I was wondering, I'm like, well, they must have contracts in place. They must have like the time bought at Foxconn or wherever they're going to build this shit. They must have like all the R&D and all of their own internal resources going in,
hundreds of millions of dollars. That's
what right, exactly. And I'm like, but that's how unimaginable it is to me, where I'm like, I don't know, man. Like, I would love to think that this thing is going to come out. I'm especially excited about the handheld, but that this thing is going to come out and it's going to blow everyone away. But I'm like, these prices, this economic situation, increasing joblessness and economic disparity as AI kind of continues to disrupt things. And the PS5 Pro is already whatever, $800 or $900, whatever the hell it costs. It's like, how is this thing going to be affordable to anyone? And then I asked the other question, and this is also what I'm interested in, what you think, is when you start getting into the thousands, right? 1,000, 1,100, 1,200, so on. I think it's fair to say that you're getting away from the more paycheck to paycheck working class consumer, right? And you're getting into a consumer that has a little bit more money and a little bit more stability on average. And if you're asking them $1,000 or $900 or $1,100 for something, they're going to have this propensity to say, well, I could just buy a PC for 15, or I could just buy a PC. You know what I mean? The higher you get, there's got to be a relationship between penny pinching and the cost and what you're willing to pay for something. And if you're starting to get towards that line on the graph, then I wonder if you're actually making something so expensive where the disproportion is no longer important, because people will go to where they think the future of gaming is, if that makes sense. And I think that that's a problem for PlayStation. If they can keep costs constrained in this era of exploding electronics costs, they win.
I mean, and that's where I make the argument. Actually, it's never been more important to get this thing out as fucking fast as possible.
Interesting.
Because the popped collar PS5, that's the size of a desktop, is so inefficient. It was designed in a world where they assumed everything would be cheaper and keep getting cheaper. I mean, who cares about all this metal and all of this plastic? It's basically free. Now precious metal costs are up. Oil is what you use to make plastic, and really everything, actually. Like, all of those costs are up. And I mean, from the beginning, they've been designing the PS6 seemingly knowing something was wrong in the future and that this has to be cheaper. And they need to just move away from, I think it's going to be a lot like the PS3, actually. I've long called the PS5 like the PS3 done right. What if it wasn't stupid? You know, what if you designed this bespoke thing with features the competition doesn't have, but it was actually easy to use? And it's big, expensive. It dominates the living room on purpose. We want you to struggle to put the PS5 somewhere. So it's like an awkward shape. So you have to put it somewhere. Everyone sees it when they walk in your apartment or something. Like, I think that was 100% intentional. It's the opposite of the PS4, where it had to just be as small as possible and signal you're not wasting money if you buy this thing. And I think that's what they're going to do with the PS6. Is they're going to if they do that. Yes, you know, the silicon costs more, but that's like, what, a fifth of the cost? Like, yes, the RAM will cost more for the non-cheap version of the PS6, but that's the non-cheap version, and those costs will go down eventually. Everything from the motherboard to if you have it, use less energy, you have cheaper cooling, you have a cheaper power supply. You can make the boxes smaller and ship it for less money. They need to get off of this generation so they have one that is designed for now. Because, and this is something actually you learn a lot of, like, military procurement. It's interesting. All of my examples are the military for some reason today, but like there, I don't know if you know this, but like, eventually modern powers have to they have to modernize their military, because it actually costs more to keep the old Soviet tank around because no one's making the parts for it. And it's just less efficient. It burns what was it that that aircraft carrier Russia's been using since the Cold War, like, runs on like whale fuel effectively. It's like some weird kerosene fuel. And it has to be pulled by a tugboat because it doesn't work anymore. They almost can't make the fuel to make that run. Like, of course, that's a Russian military. There's more than a few problems there. Right. But like, there's things in the U.S. military as well where they just have to. The stuff they gave to Ukraine is stuff we were going to throw away because we can't service it anymore. Like, so that eventually is what you run into with Sony. And on top of that, and this was a conversation I had with someone behind the scenes that I thought was a really good point. And I don't think this is appreciated. It costs them like $100 million to design this thing. And if you redesign it, pour it in the trash, and then it costs all this other money to like do the early masks and finalize the silicon, which they should be probably putting out early silicon actually end of this year for testing, if I had to guess, because it's supposed to manufacture middle of next year. And they have contracts. There will be penalties for canceling those contracts. And then all those contracts you got at TSMC to make the APUs, are you sure you want to give those up? Because guess who's going to buy them? NVIDIA and AMD are there, and even Intel actually are going to swoop in, and Apple, and buy up those contracts. And you have no clue if you will get those back for years. So actually, it would cost more money to delay it.
Interesting. Very interesting.
Sony sold a PS3 for like $300 losses. Actually, the 360 was like a $300 loss as well when it launched. And that was really actually a war of attrition, of quite a bit of stupidity involved. But like, they were willing to because they had to. And that was when they chose to. Now it's like, well, so are we really going to change our plans because RAM's expensive for 1 year?
Yeah.
No, you're not. You're going to eat the cost for 1 year.
You're right in that Sony makes so much more money now than it did in that era. And they have much more, their coffers are much more full, and their barrier towards being totally in the red are much higher, though their margins are nothing to write home about. The losses on PS3 almost killed them, right? Like, Shuhei talks about that. Like, if it wasn't for Bravia, they would have died. The company would have been done, and they would have been split up.
No, they don't even technically make TVs anymore.
Right, exactly.
Isn't that funny?
Right. And I say this, my audience hears me say this all the time, but like, one of the canniest and smartest things Sony ever did was identify that entertainment was going to be very important. And they started doing that in the 70s. They bought CBS Music. They own, if people go look, like, they own a shit ton of music, like things like you would be shocked that they own the rights to. And then they buy Columbia and TriStar in the 80s. And that's Sony, that basis of Sony Pictures. And then, Nintendo spurns them at the altar. And so they start up PlayStation. So they became this entertainment company. And it's interesting to think that though the PS3 era was existential for Sony, they could theoretically withstand those losses. I don't want to say fairly easily. It would hurt a lot. But
and I want to be clear. I've done a whole analysis recently. It's what I used to do professionally. Like, if they were to buy the components now, which I believe are peaking, there's tons of stories coming out right now about RAM prices actually falling.
Yeah, because of cancellations, right? And all sorts of things.
Yep. And like, kind of seems like Sam Altman's company's falling apart, which is really what predicated all of this, is them basically scaring everyone into thinking there won't be RAM for years.
Yeah, you told me that, right? That they bought things they weren't even really going to use, right? Or had no intention of even.
There was no evidence they weren't. I guess now we're seeing that. Correct. It seems like that was a correct speculation by now. I do not believe things will be as expensive next year. Maybe it's because no one will have money, like after the PS3 launch for a while at the recession, but things will be cheaper. And so the worst case scenario, I think, is 900. If that's worst case right now, and I think a lot of people took the wrong thing away from my last live stream, which is there's like, well, Tom did the math and it actually could be 900, which is almost 1,000, which means it'll be 1,200. And you just somehow made 3 mental leaps to say you were right that it's going to be $1,000. The point is, if I have to bend over backwards to get to $900 now, and only an idiot would buy these components now, I don't think it's going to be as expensive as people think. And I think it will. And again, that's the main console that I think is probably going to be like 600 to 700 without a disk drive. The PS6S, were they to make one, and I actually want to ask you about that, because I wonder if you agree that they really should make one. Actually, let me write this reader mail, and Justin McCumber writes in and says, I've been a Patreon supporter of both of yours for years. I love when you do shows together. Anyways, I'm curious if you've heard any more about the form factor of Canis. That's the APU in the handheld. What would you two want? I'm so excited for the PS6. If you heard from anyone involved with any, see, my fan base, they're just ecstatic. Any updated specs of the PS6 since talking more about it lately. Also, what is the likelihood of an S console? What might they call it? Would they go PS6S or something? Yeah, I don't. Maybe E if they want to go the efficiency angle. The PS6 Eco. I don't know.
Yeah, that's interesting.
But like, well, I think that's the more interesting thing to bring up first is they have this handheld that's like half the size. The APU is half the size of like the Series S. This thing is going to cost them like, I forgot the math I did. It was, well, actually, let me see. It's like the PS6S or handheld APU is $46.08, I calculate, probably to manufacture. The PS5, even the current one, the die shrink, the cheaper one, is $81.53. So it's almost half the cost to make this handheld APU that will outperform the PS5. They have to get this thing out. And I think they should not just put it in the handheld. Like, if they can make a $399 version that is basically the PS5 with more ray tracing and it can do all the AI stuff for next gen, and it's $399, I think that sells like hotcakes, and they have to do it in the current economic climate. And I think a lot of people would feel, well, maybe they would feel seen by Sony if they actually met them where they wanted to be price-wise. And there's such an opportunity. Would you agree, like, if they can do, yeah, it's not really, it's barely stronger than the PS5 in some ways, but it's like a next-gen version. If they can do that next gen, wouldn't this be the time to do it?
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing that I don't even fully understand, really, and a lot of my audience, which is more software oriented, doesn't understand, is like how the new tech can be cheaper than the old tech. Or, yeah, right. That's right.
Well, but compare, a lot of the stuff we have now is cheaper than the old stuff. Again, whether it's like, if you adjust for inflation, like some tanks or guns or like cars. I mean, it's not even, like, how is an EV cheaper in China, not in the US, than, a lot of combustion engine cars?
That's a great point. Yeah, it's a great point.
They don't need it. Oh, well, it's because the CCP pays for it, but also because they don't need oil changes, all this stuff. It's an iPad on wheels. The new tech is cheaper, uses less. So here's a perfect example. Right. The PS6S will probably consume 15 watts. The PS5 consumes 200. You could put you could glue 10 pennies on top of it and put a cheap fan, and now you're cooling it. And what does that mean? I mean, your cooling motherboard costs are you're removing hundreds of dollars in costs from that alone. And it's this big, it costs a tenth as much to ship it. I mean, it's very easy to see how it's just because newer is better. It's just better.
No, it's a great, that's the exact explanation I needed, because I always said, like, I intellectually understand what Tom is saying when we bring this stuff up. And yet I'm like, I can't quite articulate. Like, I know it's like, using fewer materials and using them differently. And like you said, shipping costs, like a big thing is like, if it's lighter, like, imagine how much the PS3 costs to ship. Could you imagine that thing? Dude, you could have killed someone with that thing. You know?
Yeah, it's like 12 or 13 pounds. It's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous. And the original Xbox was also insanely huge. And those things matter, and those things add up when you're selling millions of units. So I totally understand that. That makes a lot of sense to me. So I love what you're saying, because what you're basically saying is that they already have what they need for the S. They just need to put it in a box with an HDMI port. And right? I mean, that's basically what you're saying. So why wouldn't you?
Here's another fun example.
Yeah.
I keep thinking about guns, probably revealing I am a gun nut. Yes, I am. But the Tommy gun, maybe I like it because it's just my name, but it was really cool in the 20s. By World War II, I'd argue not really a good choice. But in the 1920s, I just looked this up. In today's money, those cost $4,000 to make. They fired pistol rounds that had the range of like 2 of my backyards. And you're saying something here that costs like twice as much as like an M16 that can shoot 1,000 meters away in the right configurations. Like it's because it had all this wood that people had to hand make, and screws, the little screws they put in. You had to do all of that stuff. It's just not cost effective.
It's very sensible what you're saying. It's very, I mean, it makes a lot of sense. As far as
I want to be clear. I believe the PS6S could cost less. I do not believe the PS6 standard will be cheaper than the base PS5, most likely. I think if they really went for it, it could be the same price. I don't think it'll be cheaper, though. I do want to be clear, because I've seen people taking what I'm saying, and they're like, he's saying it's all going to be free. No, the PS6S, I think, could be less than the PlayStation 5, and it would still outperform it overall. And then there's the PS6 standard that I think will probably be priced between the PS5 Pro and the PS5. So I do want to be clear that it kind of be a consolation price for the fact that the standard console will be a little more.
And to be fair as well, I mean, this was not the economic constraint that the console was initially envisioned to come out under either. So it's which is again,
honestly, it kind of seems like it was. I don't know.
Well, tell me more.
Though when I look through documentation, they openly say, like, whereas consoles are constrained, like it just says low power, threats from EU in the future. I don't believe, I'm looking at one of the docs now, I don't believe those were out yet. They just assumed the EU is going to have constraints in the future. And there's things that say must be cost constrained for future markets. These people are paid a lot of money. It almost seems like they do think that. I don't think they thought there'd be a war in Iran, but I think that they thought that actually maybe they do need to worry about something in the future.
Yeah, it's
interesting.
I'm fascinated by the people that deal with this level of strategy at these multinationals as well, because it's incredibly.
They don't work at Steam. They didn't design the Steam machine, though. Very different people designed that, who had no concept that you might want to buy the RAM before you announce the console.
Right. Fair enough. Now, Justin McCumber, your listener here, our listener, said. He said something. I'm quote. This is what you were saying. Quote. I'm so excited for the PS6. Quote. That has never been written in my comments. It's so fascinating. It's so fascinating. And Justin, you said you're a listener of both of us. You got to write in with some more of this rosiness. I'm so interested what the audience will think when the thing is actually announced and shown.
And look, they could fuck it up. I'm not.
Yeah, of course they could.
People sometimes take this to mean, like, for example, I did the cost estimate for the PS5 Pro, and I was like, I think it's going to be $600 without a disk drive, or $550. And nope, they could choose to charge more. Who knows? We could be in the middle of a nuclear war, cosplaying Fallout for all I know, in late 2027. So, like, I don't want anyone to take this and then send me angry comments. Like, you promised me this will be this price. I cannot promise you what these companies will do, nor what world leaders will do until this launches.
Right. Naturally.
This spring, Jessie, like many Belgian Malinois, is starting her own logging company outside. And I gotta say, watching her do this, it's bizarre. It's almost as weird as someone paying full price for Microsoft Office or operating systems, and that is why this piece of content is brought to you by CDkeyoffer.com. That's right. Once again, the longest running sponsor actually of Moore's Law is Dead, CDkeyoffer.com, is sponsoring this piece of content. And that's because I just think it's something that should be out there, something that our community should always know about. And that is reasonably priced Microsoft keys and also deals on different pieces of software like games as well on their website. Now, if you're interested in supporting Moore's Law is Dead and thus supporting a sponsor that supports Moore's Law is Dead, go to CDkeyoffer.com through the link below. Just clicking on that link helps a ton. But then if you do go there and want to buy something, make sure you use offer code BrokenSilicon to save 25% on all Microsoft software and Die Shrink to save 3% off everything else on the website. Again, they've been a great sponsor this whole time. I love working with them. It's easy to work with them. And they provide a service I think this community needs, reasonably priced Microsoft keys. So support Moore's Law is Dead by checking out CDkeyoffer.com today. One thing I want to bring up too, and maybe this will, for some of your listeners that aren't wearing the rose-tinted glasses, the more I think about it, and this is kind of a little spiel I want to do, like, the more I think about it, the more I think that the PS5 was always doomed to be a shitty gen. Like, it wasn't from the concept. It's not like they thought this might happen in 2018, but it launched to COVID and ended in an oil crisis. I mean, for the love of God, people, cut Sony and Microsoft and Valve some slack. I mean, this was always going to be a gen with tons of headwinds, few tailwinds, and a generation where they went from hard drives to SSDs, and because of that, the PS4 was always going to hold back the PS5 in a way that I do not believe PS5 will hold back the PS6, which we can get into. And I think the funniest thing is, I think the biggest thing, if it does turn out well, the biggest thing that will make Xbox Helix and PS6 feel like a bigger leap is that they don't have the anchor around their necks that is the PS4 and Xbox One's design, which were budget focused and just lack fundamental modern features that mean that any game that has to run on PS4, which Sony is trying to strangle to death right now, it's just going to feel like a bigger leap for that reason alone, I think.
Yeah, they are being more aggressive, it seems like, in getting people off of PS4. And I think they realize they have to kind of do it with some haste, because and this is one of the most fascinating parts about the PS6 to me, is that we will legitimately be in a situation where people are on 3 consoles at once, which has never been a thing. It would have been like you were still using your PS2 when the PS4 came out. It's like, that wasn't a thing. No one was doing that. Maybe in Brazil or something they were doing that, but no. But now you're going to have several tens of millions of people on PS4 when PS6 comes out. And I don't know if you saw, Genshin Impact just ended on PS4.
I heard you say that.
That's a big step.
Interesting. And
I wonder, now the word about that is that MiHoYo feels like the game is being held back by these last gen versions and they need to move on. I
do believe that's true.
I think it's true too, and yet the games do run on mobile, but mobile phones can run like Resident Evil 4 remake and shit. So it's like, okay,
but the phone has an SSD. The phone has more RAM sometimes, not always actually, but it can sometimes have more RAM. The architecture itself, there's fundamental ways modern games are rendered that the PS4 can't do. Like how you draw the geometry, it can't do. It's not a matter of it's weaker. The game crashes if you try to render it in a modern way on a PS4. So, and I do know developers that tell me the same thing, that they're this close to just wanting to drop the PS4 because the update system, the way it works, by the way, the back-end software for PS5, I'm told apparently is just so much easier to update and use. And I do believe we are getting to kind of an escape velocity where it's just becoming too cumbersome to support. I do hear that. Having said that, I do know that Sony's literally sending out emails to people apparently that are like, hey, have you thought about not doing PS4 anymore? So they are pushing them, to be fair.
Yeah, to be fair. They ultimately need to make a decision on how aggressive they want to be. For instance, I was fascinated. There were 2 games that came out that I thought were so peculiar to have come to PS4. That came out after the game launched in current gen, and then they're like, we're going to go back and release an old version of it. And it was Star Wars Jedi Survivor and Hogwarts Legacy. And it's like, what? Like at the time you're like, and then you realize as Sony starts talking about things more openly, you realize it's like, oh, they are running the margins up on their business on PS4. And things look as good as they do from a user point of view, like an active monthly active user point of view, because of PS4. And people are probably using their PS4s a lot to like stream Hulu and Netflix and shit and play fucking eFootball and Fortnite. But like there's money to be made there. And yet the urgency to get people over is such that I wonder if you really have to start kind of strong arming people. And the best you can do is being like, we're just shutting services down at some point on this. But
which I put out a leak that they're literally shutting down PS4 services late this year or something. It's crazy.
What's surprise? I don't know any. That's interesting. We'll have to report on that in the next episode.
They have a cross-gen SDK that is easy. Supposedly, someone told me at a studio to upgrade your game to that will make it work. But like the old PS4 way of doing things, they're literally end-of-lifing this stuff. Like it's like they're like, we are done. Get out of here, guys.
Right. Right. It's like that. I think is going to probably have to be the solution, and then you're going to have to maybe. I imagine the PS4 is most used in like developing countries. And you might have to enter these markets, especially in places like Brazil where they have outrageous, tariffs and all the rest. It's like you might have to, if you care about these growing markets, and I know they care a lot about China, they talk about it all the time. It's like you gotta maybe subsidize the console. Like if it's important enough for you, get the PS5 slim diskless into these locations so they can just fucking play whatever they're playing on them. But supporting 3 consoles at a time, and really, from a network perspective, it's going to be 4 unless they do finally shut PS3 off.
I believe they are, aren't they? They announced something, or they're effectively.
Well, you'll remember, like, I thought it was like a couple of years ago, but I was reminded it was like 4 or 5 years ago they tried to shut the PS3 down. You remember this? And then everyone's like, oh, no, like, we don't want you to do that. And then they just like, all right, never mind. They tried to shut the Vita down too. The PSP is gone, but like the Vita and the PS3 are still operable. You can still buy games on them, and there's like best of lists and top charts and all the rest. And so it's like they got to start truncating things, and they have to be more aggressive. And they tried to, and they got scared away from doing that because there are still a few million people on PS3 monthly active users.
And what year? Do you remember which year was it they tried to do that?
I think it was 21 or 22. I'll look real quick.
See, that's why there was a backlash. That was peak. This is anti-consumer to expect us to get a PS5 to play a game, which you can tell from my tone, especially as a PC gamer, I find annoying. If no one wants new games, that's what we'll do then, I guess, everybody. You can't complain about the state of games and then also say you don't want to buy the new thing, in my opinion.
And I also just don't think Sony anticipated that people were going to be this sticky with PS4. Because the PS4 is kind of perfect if like you're looking for a very specific thing. And I think that because they would say that this is why Sony doesn't talk anymore, because the few things that they said, like a lot of that blew up on them when, one of the major Jim Ryan quotes that everyone always brings up is we believe in generations. Mm-hmm. Right. And then they released God of War, Horizon, and all this other shit, Miles Morales, cross-gen. They can't even like give you the launch Spider-Man game on PS5. They have to bring it to PS4 because they have to respect that ecosystem. And they are still, it's much smaller now, but still in that position where it's like, you got to kind of respect that people are playing games there still, and people are buying games there. And I don't know, it bums me out just because I want people to move on if they can. And I know a lot of people can't afford it or they don't have the propensity to do so otherwise, but it is going to be a problem for developers too, as you said, in updating all these SKUs and
because they're sick of it. They're sick of supporting the old generations, and there's going to be people who go, this is forced obsolescence. But it's like, I mean, it would be if the PS3 was killed when the PS4 launched, but the PS3 is now, it's now almost 20 years old.
Yep.
I mean, that's not forced obsolescence. They're trying to give their studios a break. And, like, why do you think these games take so long? Not all of them, but this is a factor. Like, why are like games taking longer and longer to come out? It's because they have to program them for all this crap and all these platforms. That's why Sony's moving away from multi-plat, because I think they realize if they get a modern architecture with PS6 and they can sell it at a cheap price, I wonder how much money they say that. What if they sold half as many units, but they could make the game twice as fast and it cost half as much to make? They might go, it's worth gambling this. I mean, and that's what, but and what I was going to say before is, 2021 was like peak. We're mad, inflation, we're taking out our stress from COVID on everybody else, frankly. And so that was the wrong time to do that. But it was also like they didn't give them an answer. If there's a vacuum, people will fill it with rage. You have to give them an answer. And if I just pulled up my bomb estimate again, like if tariffs were removed, which I would assume they will be by the end of next year, by the way, that's also something Sony will wait for. Like you could have, even if they bought the RAM now, the PS6S be $350, and that's sold at cost. And to put that in perspective, $350 today would be about $250 in 2013. So anyone who bought a PS4, I think they would look at the price of eggs and bacon, and then they would look at a $350 or $400, maybe even $450 PS6S, and they'd go, okay, you're killing the PS3. You're clearly about to kill the PS4, but at least you gave me something I can afford to move to. And I think if they do that, that's a very valuable play. I want to be clear, though. I can't promise you they will do that. I just think it's mind-numbingly obvious they should. Or at least, or maybe just make the standard PS6 be, $500 somehow. I don't know.
Yeah, I wonder if they're even going to try to eagerly get to a redesign as quickly as possible to just bring costs down. If they've figured things out, they're kind of locked into this, and we're going to manufacture X million at this, but we really want to ultimately move over to this or see what happens. Be nimble.
But don't you think people would have been less mad when they killed PS3, when people were saying we don't want to have to get God of War on the newest console, if there was a PS5S for $299 at the time? Like, I think if there was and it was readily available, people wouldn't have been as mad.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. I think people are legitimately being priced out of games for the first time in generations. I don't mean generations of people. I mean generations of consoles. I mean, there was a time when things were fairly expensive. I mean, an Atari 2600 at $200 is not exactly an affordable thing in 1977. But the bigger question to me, and I wonder what you think of this from a software perspective, is because of all of these prevailing, PS4 is still alive. They're not really making games for PS4 anymore. Like, obviously MLB The Show is done on there. They're not really putting games on there, but they supported it for a long time. New games still come to it all the time. My game's coming to it. That's easy enough for us to do. But I wonder what it means for PS6 exclusives. And I ask that because if you're an internal developer, part of you is eager, no doubt, to move on to the new hardware, but part of you sees that, well, there are multiple things. It's like, how well did that work out for Bluepoint with Demon Souls? Number one. And second of all, is like your ship bonuses are going to be greatly diminished and all these things because your user base is going to be much smaller. Like, there's almost no advantage for the internal studio to be put on these exclusive games anymore. And I guess what I'm saying is, I wonder if everything that's on PS6 is just going to be Miles Morales style, like where they're going to be available on both. And I wonder that's going to be hard to proliferate PS6 that way. And yet I wonder if that's kind of the most logical play. And I think
like they just have to make the play at some point, or they're going to lose their identity, right?
Right. Like, part of me is like, you can't launch a console without games that you can only play on that console. At least one or two. But part of me is like, why would anyone want to make that game? Like, internally? It's right.
The human factor. You talk to game devs, or you talk to people at AMD, they're not rooting against NVIDIA. They're not, this is a cost-effective reason. They want to make the biggest graphics card. They want to make the coolest game. These are nerds that want to do new things. And if you keep them in this, well, like a child in a well for too long, they're going to just give up on doing creative things. I think so.
It's interesting to think about. Yeah, just the financial realities of like what it means for a Ghost of Yotei to ship when it shipped, as opposed to being a launch game, and how much more money Sucker Punch made because of it. And so, yeah, like, you have to let people do the great new things, but you have to watch out for like what makes financial sense for all of your different outfits. And it's not a good look that like the guys that made the prolific first party exclusive for PS5 got shut down. Like,
yeah.
So I really wonder what their plans are. And like, I wonder, Horizon, I know Horizon Forbidden West for a fact was being made for PS4 and was, brought to PS5. And who knows if they ever would have released the PS4 version, but ultimately they did, and they felt like they had to, and they released them at the same time. But I wonder what the story was with God of War and all these other things, and why other games were immune. And I also know that like Sony, I know firsthand that Sony says things about games not being able to run on hardware, and then they get it to run on hardware. A great example of this is when Resogun came out, the PS4 launch game from Housemarque. They swore up and down that game could not work on like it was like, this is the PS4's voxels and it only runs like this because of this. And they brought the game to PS3 and Vita. And a lot of people linked out to like my old stories about talking to them in that the interviews or whatever piece they said in the PR. And I'm like, yeah, you can't really take anyone at their word either. So you don't just don't really know. I'm curious what the software ecosystem is going to look like in this generation, because it's hard for me not only to imagine this console coming out and people really, grabbing onto it, but also that games will come to it exclusively, although that is obviously natural and what happens with every console that is released. So I feel like for the first time in my life, this is a common theme in our conversation, is like I am I'm in a space of having a hard time imagining things. And it makes me all the more excited to see it play out, because I really have no idea how it's going to go.
Curry King 3 writes in and says, with a PlayStation Portable on the horizon and PlayStation utilizing the same fundamental technologies of PS5, such as the near latest RDNA technology and ultra-fast SSD, how do you feel about a more modest technical jump into next gen? And how do you think that could impact the cost of development and the value of creativity in the video game space? What similarities or differences do you anticipate for next gen? Do you anticipate these factors could shorten or lengthen the gen? And do you think this is a good thing for the general health of the gaming space? So what I would say is, and I think this is something I have to push back on constantly, it's like people misread the point. They see me say PS6 is like double the raster, or let's use non-pro. It's like 3 times the standard raster performance of the PS5's graphics card. And then they skip over 12 times the ray tracing. They skip over 500 times the AI. I think the PS5, by the way, is actually weaker than the Series S at AI, or about closer to that, the Series X, just how they designed it. And I think I need to stop saying breaking them apart and just simplifying it and saying, no, the PS6 is a bigger leap in graphics than PS5. Raster's lower, ray tracing's higher, AI higher. Those will matter more next gen. Just like, I don't know what the example, like we weren't benchmarking how fast your 2D frame rates were anymore with the PS2,
right,
which was a thing. You needed 2 graphics to do 2 different things, actually. Like PC gamers would have a 2D graphics card at one point and a 3D in the same system, because they couldn't, they'd have to switch between them depending on the game in the 80s or 90s, I believe. So it is actually a bigger leap. And I think that with the PS4 gone, there's 2 things. Number one, anything that does AI is not going to work on the PS5, just straight up. Anything, and that could even be just for rendering graphics better, because you can use neural rendering or other things for that. But anything that's just ray tracing, or even if it's way higher, you could still do on PS5. And because the PS5 is an SSD faster than most PCs, it actually won't hold back the PS6 version at all. And so it's a weird situation where, depending on what your game does, it cannot work on PS5. And so, like you say, Colin, the devs are going to want to use that are the creative ones. And it's not getting it to work. It won't work. It's just not going to work on the PS5. At the same time, anything that does more things a more traditional way, but maybe has ray tracing at levels you can't even imagine, you could get that to work at 1080p, 60, 720p on the PS5, and then you can ship on both. So I think it's going to be a weird generation where we might have more exclusives on PS6, and yet a lot of games won't have as much of a dilemma working on PS5 unless they wanted to be fundamentally new. Like Resident Evil 10 will work fine. You know what I'm like, and unlike before, where there are games that just won't work on PS4 because of the hard drive.
You can quantify this so much better than I can, because you're so much more technically minded. So I leave it to you. But Chris and I often talk about on the show, now that things run at 60 frames pretty reliably and at 4K fairly reliably, although not as reliably, and usually you have to make a concession with resolution.
Still usually looks pretty good, even if it's not 4K.
Right, exactly. PSSR is really awesome on Pro with some of these games, and we're getting to a point of high technical fidelity. And the one thing that I feel like as more of a layman, more of an everyman as far as tech is concerned, it's not a driving force in my life, and I look for it to introduce itself into things that mean something to me, and in games, with my phone, with computers, whatever. But I look at some of these games, like you bring up Resident Evil Requiem, and I'm like, I don't really need it to look any better than this. I can't imagine games starting. Yote, I brought up a few moments ago. It's like, this game is outrageous looking. We're getting to a point where I'm like, there are true diminishing returns for normal people. Because if I feel that way, and I'm kind of an industry enthusiast, then God, I can't even imagine how like your customer at Costco that sees your shit on the shelf might feel about it. They're going to be like, this looks like what I have at home. And I wonder if, that's the other thing I'm eager to see too, is how there are so many more increases to the quality of game that can come than just the quality of the visual or the audio or whatever.
Which it seems like that's what they're focusing on when you look at the specs, is like it's the same thing as like Mark Cerny didn't go for the maximum teraflops. They were like, really, we want the fastest storage with PS5 and the ability to write the game quickly so that we try to not have as long of development times, although it doesn't seem like that was ultimately successful. And that was the right bet. And I think the bet they seem to be making when I look at the specs is the bet they're making is you don't need a higher resolution. Frame rate, maybe we just stabilize. It's like a shaky 120 right now. Let's just get it to 120 and make that the standard. And after that, everything else is for making the game easier to write, easier to make, and adding new features. Like that's where, again, it kind of reminds me of the PS3, like where it's like there's going to be games you fundamentally could not have done on the previous gen, and they're putting all of their eggs in the basket of let's make those capabilities better, while not jacking up the cost more than we need to. It's like you said, like if they want, like you look at Xbox Helix, it's going to be the biggest APU in a console in history. It's going to be expensive. They're betting, again, for some reason, I don't know why they think this is what made PS4 when it's not the teraflops, it was the games. They're betting on the strongest thing ever, and then it's also a PC. Whereas when I look at the PS6, I go, this is someone that knows we're kind of already pretty happy, so let's make sure it's not more expensive and it does new things. I think that's them. And again, maybe they're going to come out and they're just going to announce, we're partnering with Call of Duty and there's nothing new. I don't know. But when I look at the specs, this looks like a company that's acutely aware that if they just make a bigger PS5, no one's going to care.
Yeah, I think you're right. And they are certainly going after two different markets. I do feel like the increase in game quality will come mostly in the seams at this point, more than the graphical quality beyond PS6, just in the dynamics of a game and perhaps how robust a game can be, how generated a game can be in terms of, its randomness, maybe something made just for you, conversations and dialogue just for you, quests just for you, that kind of shit. Like I don't necessarily get excited about that though, just because I don't like playing games forever. And that's the kind of thing where it sounds like things are going to go towards this zero sum. We'll just get you to stay forever, which is what everyone wants. They want that forever game now. Wonder if this technology will make that easier.
But what if there's a PS6 dev, package where, and I know, something broke through the mainstream from the hardware side when everyone, I think you had a whole segment talking, the whole podcast, right? With Jaffe talking about DLSS 5. Mm-hmm. Like, that broke through when you're doing an entire podcast about this blunder NVIDIA seemingly made. That's the dumb side of AI. Is we're going to yassify all of your characters and then pretend that we didn't, and then make ridiculous arguments like it doesn't change the geometry, even though the shape of her face changed. Like, what you think?
It doesn't even make any sense. It was awful.
But we didn't change the geometry. We just changed the texture that makes the geometry look different. Okay, if so facto, same fucking thing, guys. I mean, good lord. But you could have used that, and the reason they did that, by the way they did it is because they don't want it to run on AMD because they want to kill AMD. But the smart way to use that technology is you just have a bunch of AA devs start making games and make assets that are like PS3, PS4 grade. They put less effort into it. Not everyone has the money to go to like Iceland and mega scan a mountain like the Death Stranding 2 devs have. Right. But you could do something where you just make a basic model, and then before the game is rendering, while you're developing it, you take the PlayStation AI software and you just strip it through there and it comes out the other side looking better. How much development time are we going to save doing that? This might be, I think next gen could be a boon for single player games, for AA games, because they're not going to have to worry about hard drives. That makes the coding so much easier to know, even if it's on PS5, the ray tracing capabilities of the PS6 are such that they don't need to like pre-bake the lighting in every scene. They can just turn on the lights and it works. You don't need to program any of that anymore. And you can probably use some of the AI to do things for you that you didn't have to do before, even in the game. So I don't know, you're going to have to be careful. You don't want to make them hallucinate ridiculous dialogue. But what if it just made it easier for them to calculate things and not have to like make the assets as, Naughty Dog will probably still take 5 years to make a game because that's what they do. But I think for smaller studios with AI and throwing out the old consoles, I think this is a generation where it's going to be easier than ever for like 5 people to make a game that feels AAA. And that really excites me.
Yeah. Well, I think it's going to be real. I think there's a lot to say about that, actually, because I think what I say on Sacred over and over again is that I'm having a hard time justifying in my mind why it matters that a game should be easier to make. And obviously the answers to that are clear, cheap, access, fewer, you have to put fewer resources into it. You're riding with less. Some people put everything they have into a game. Maybe that just simply won't be necessary anymore. I mean, there's a lot to say about it from a positive point of view. I worry about it from a market point of view, though, because we are already so flooded with games. This is what I say about AI intersecting with humanities generally is AI is great. And I don't really, I would lie if I told you that I integrate AI into my workflow, because I really don't. Outside of like, if I Google something, it usually.
By the way, I sound like an AI evangelist now. If you were to ask my community, they would say I hate AI more than anything. But I'm making the argument for how you would use it well.
No, I understand completely. And I am what I would call myself an AI realist.
Sure, me too. Okay.
Where I think it's too bad you're not into sports, because I brought this reference up recently. But like in baseball, they have like automatic. They have, you can challenge the umpire's calls now. Mm-hmm. And this always made sense to me, because in baseball, everything is a binary, 0 or 1, ball, strike, safe, out, etc. Swing, don't swing, like that kind of catch, don't catch. Like it's everything that can be done by a computer. Mm-hmm. And I have no problem offloading a lot of that shit to computers. I get worried about, and this is philosophical and only philosophical, but I get worried about offloading humanities to AI because there are no answers to the questions that you're asking it.
Yeah.
There could be any number of answers to the interpretation of a beautiful mountain or whatever. And it's like, and when I, as a creative, and we have strict rules at Liliamo, my studio, is like when I hear like, and you hear it sometimes, I don't want to call any names out because I don't want to like draw, I'm not trying to hate on people, but you hear every once in a while, it's like, oh, I had this idea for, I'm designing this game and I had this idea for a game. So I kind of like put the idea into an AI to see like, what does this look like? And I'm like, but that's not yours anymore. Now it's like, now the AI searched all of human knowledge, I guess, and then like gave you back its best answer. And that answer would be different a million times if you asked it. And thus, why are you offloading that work at all? And
if it's different every time, you must be using ChatGPT.
Yeah,
which sucks. But go on.
I don't use, well, actually I do use ChatGPT, but I only use like the text version of it on my phone. And I tell people this all the time. Like I ask it weird shit. Like I like asking it stuff to just be like, what is this true? Or like, what, show me some sources about this or whatever. I guess this is, it's unfortunate, but it's just true. It's like how we feel about high fructose corn syrup. Like everyone hates it for some reason. I think it's like awesome that we have this artificial, or it's not artificial, it's natural like sugar alternative, but people don't really like it. But it's in everything and everyone eats it because they don't care that much. They don't care that much that like the chickens are being tortured that are giving them the eggs or whatever, right? Like as long as they get the eggs. And frankly, it's kind of where we're going with AI. And so that's why I say I'm like a realist, where I'm like, I accept that. Like, but I am always, as someone who writes, like I'm a writer by trade. It's like, if you told me that if you presented something to me and were like, oh, ChatGPT wrote this for me, I'd be like, well, you're like a chump and a hack.
Yeah.
And that's never going to change. The only thing that's going to, my opinion, the only thing that's going to change is that like, if no one cares about the source of things, then AI will win. And then we'll get like the future you want. But I don't know how that, like, I don't know how a marketplace with 100,000 games a year instead of 2,000 or 3,000 is going to benefit anyone. And so I think there's just a lot of things that people don't think about, but it doesn't matter. This like, train is going, dude. Like we all know where we're going. So.
This piece of content is brought to you by the ASR EG02, a Thunderbolt 5 and Oculink GPU dock, which that's right, it can use Thunderbolt 5 for extra bandwidth and also for compatibility with many different products. It also has built-in signal amplification for high-speed performance. It comes with a stand to save space, and it also has a DC interface so that you can connect mini PCs very easily. This is a one-stop shop for powering up your devices with a dedicated graphics card. If you want to support Moore's Law is Dead, check it out through the link below today. Well, so actually, I actually disagree with that, and that's a thing, a rant, I've done on my channel a few times now, which the train is coming and people will be getting off at this stop. But that's not the train you said. Everyone is so furious about AI. I actually got a lot of this. I already thought it, but I think it was well crystallized by Ed Elson. He has a podcast, Prof G Markets. He was recently on the podcast. So I want to plug him as well because he really put it the most succinctly where he's like, I don't think some of these people in tech get the train is coming. And the train is people hate them. And when you hear these condescending, arrogant things from big tech people, where they're just like, well, there's really nothing we can do. We just have to tax the middle class more. It's like, okay, man, see how that goes in 3 years. See what the people think when you keep saying that. There's really nothing we can do. AI is going to, no, people can vote and they can string you up. And they have in the past and they have in history. And the train's coming. The train is people are mad at AI and there's going to be a tech backlash. And what we have to decide is to make sure it's not stupid, that we don't, like the French Revolution, they just start killing people because they can read. Like, that's not what you want. But I actually disagree that the train is coming, because when you talk down to people that way and you say you have to put up with it, it's coming no matter what, you get these backlashes like against globalism where everyone's like, you have to deal with it. They didn't have to deal with it, it turns out. They could fight back. And so I don't know what that really means, because I do believe AI is here to stay, and I believe used correctly. It just, I use Gemini all the time just to come up with ideas in like Google. It's just replacing Google for me, really, or like ideation on thumbnails and stuff. And it is such a time saver. It's like, can you tell me if you cross-reference this, and I can't use ChatGPT anymore. I think it's unusable. It's so behind. Like, and it's just like, yep. And it's accurate. It actually does give me the same answer every time. Within reason, a human wouldn't either. And I think that, making it so devs don't have to waste as much time on assets, but not using it so that every game looks the same, using it so that for side missions, you can write quickly, which, look, no offense to like the worst writers on websites, but like AI writes better than them already. Like, so, but it will never write as well as you, Colin.
No, never. Actually, I said this on a show recently that I'm a huge user of the M dash and the double dash. I love them. I've used them like my entire career. Me too. And AI does, and AI does it. So whenever you so for the first time, I wrote something on social media, and someone responded like, "That's AI," and I'm like, "Fuck no, it isn't. Go look for the M dash in all my work at IGN. Like, you're out of your mind."
Or like, I think some people like notice I usually have 3 to 5 bullet points, and it's like, because you're supposed to. That's how many you have. Like, I learned this in college from some professor that people can't count past 5 quickly. Like, if I dropped like these 4 markers on the ground, you would look and say that's 4. The second it's 7, you have to stop and count. And that's just because they think it's based on how many fingers we have on a hand. I don't know. It's just a quirk of the human brain. And so like, if you can, 6 bullet points is most, probably 3 to 4, 5 is ideal. And that's just true. And the reason it looks like I write like AI is because I just know these good writing techniques, and AI does,
Right. So that's the way I've been turning it around. So I was making fun of it, and I was saying on one of our shows, I was like, so like the AI thinks like the best human writing is like the way I write. That's interesting. But I love your hope for the future. And I want to say that like, I'm not a Luddite in the classic sense, right? Like I don't like technology. I want there to be.
I see many LED lights behind you, and you're allowed to use electricity. Yes.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. So, I want there to be advancements like Artemis 2 recently. I was like, that's the fucking coolest shit ever. This is all like, I love that kind of thing.
Nothing pisses me off more, by the way. And I'm saying this because I know you'll agree, when they're like, why are we wasting money to go to space? It's like, shut the fuck up, nerd.
I would
One missile is the cost of this mission. Like, what do you care?
I would cut so much of the federal government to go to space more. You wouldn't even, it would blow your fucking mind. So don't ask me. I'm the wrong person to say that to as well. The optimism that you have, I don't share, not because I don't want that outcome, because I do. I want an outcome of a return to like some sort of normalcy of putting these things into their place and allowing them to be used. Like, I think robotics will have a place in the future too, and all that rest. Well, obviously, autonomous vehicles have a huge place, like all that kind of stuff. It's great. But it just seems to me that, and maybe you have access to different people than I do. It seems like no one gives a shit. Like it like obviously
Who's
people care.
You mean the common person, or
let's say the common enthusiast? They don't seem to care where the product comes from.
They do a lot, actually.
Well,
the
I hope you're
DLSS
right, dude.
5 backlash is the biggest backlash I've ever seen in my life against NVIDIA. You had developers that were used to showcase DLSS 5, because it's really not DLSS. I'm not going to get into why. It's really just something they call DLSS 5 that's just slop rendering. That said, their Capcom was used to show it off with Resident Evil 9, and now they've promised not to use it effectively. And a bunch of other developers have. I forgot which one it was. Carbon Cry, who does the notes for the channel, sent me a link. Actually, I might have it right here because it's important. I don't want to miss this. Yeah, it says Phantom Blade Zero is currently in intense final stages of development. At the time we have left, we are pouring every available resource into pushing every aspect of the game. We're fully aware of profound technical. Like, they go on to say here that, like, even though they were listed as I'm not gonna read this whole thing. It's like 10 paragraphs. Like, they go on to say that even though they were listed as a DLSS 5 partner, they won't be using it. Like, this backlash by gamers is hitting, and developers are like saying they won't do it. Now, they're still going to use it to look things up, or like, I thought the backlash against Expedition 33 for using it for concept art was absurd. Who cares if they use it for concept art? But gamers, the world is what we want it to be, and I'm seeing gamers really mad about AI in games, like irrationally, actually, even though I'm on their side for the most part. And I don't think so. I think you're going to see boycotts, and you're going to see just mass, like, you're going to see developers refuse. Developers still have to make the game for the publisher. And there's been a huge backlash at Bethesda towards Todd Howard for this too, showing off Starfield with it. So I don't think I'm seeing immense backlash, like to the point of irrationality. Like, they hate it in the Moore's Law is Dead Discord. Like, everyone hates DLSS. And these are the most technically minded, give me a $3,000 graphics card people ever.
Yeah, my people hate it too. And so it's like, that's a good point. I think I was talking more holistically about, let me back up and say it this way instead. Why someone's like, all right, what's stopping me from making a game is I don't know how to draw, right? And I'm like, so why the fuck would I want to see anything that you could make artistically? You can't draw. You don't know how to make it. That's okay. I don't know how to draw either. Or a person that's like, I make AI music. It's like, what is AI music? Like, I'm a musician. It's a thing you learn. I'm not like trying to gatekeep. It's just, why would anyone want to hear the music of a computer? To me, this is a major philosophical problem for me. And I've said over and over again, and I'll continue to say it happens more and more, is I'll be tricked. Totally. I see things all the time where I'm like, is this real? And then like, it's usually not a visual clue, but a contextual clue that tells you it's not real.
That person wouldn't do that.
Yeah,
Trump's not in the middle of a flood in a suit helping people.
Right, exactly. It's like, there's nothing wrong with it visually. It's contextual. That's, to me, I'm like, I don't want games from people that don't know how to do anything. And that's ultimately like where we're getting to, instead of like it being a combination of like, I write our games and Barry, programs them and Josh does the music and so on and so forth. It's like, well, that's what it's all about. And since there is no answer to what we're doing, there really is no role for generative anything. And that to me is like a line that I think people are more comfortable crossing than you think. And I get a lot, who I hear from the most, dude, actually, are other artists. Like,
oh yeah, they're all freaked out.
And I feel like a lot of them are like, why do you care? Like, I can actually draw and I don't give a shit. And I'm like, I kind of look at you as a collaborator in a way, if I'm being honest with you. Like we should be making this as hard as possible. It's why I was so proud of the Sora thing. Like when that went out of business or whatever, and they were losing like $1 million a day. Yeah. I'm like, they're losing all that money because they're getting sued by everybody, and they're getting served, and they have to deal with all these cease and desists, and they have to deal with all the stuff in their language model and all of the rest. It's make it as hard as possible for them to do this. And that was a success story, in my opinion.
So I guess the bet that I'm making is, after me and you have just spent 2 hours saying that we're tired of slop games and Sony is going out of their way to remove them from the PlayStation Store, that more slop games will fail, and they will. I'm like, what will set people apart is people who use AI, because I sometimes use AI to make parts of my thumbnails, and people are like, "Oh, I didn't know that." Well, you shouldn't. I'm like, "Well, you didn't know," and that's because half of it was manually made by me, and I moved things around, and it was like just a thing I couldn't have made, or I couldn't get it online. Like, no one made this. Like I'm not taking, like, it's the slop that people hate, and what you're describing is slop. And like when I look around, at like, movies that are successful, it's like the CGI of Marvel is just, no one cares about Marvel anymore. It's just all, and like what does well? Practical effects. But you can use CGI for the things that make sense. And I'm just betting, like, I mean, come on, how long have we just spent saying that we don't like slop, and now we're worried slop's going to be successful?
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, there is a contradiction in there for sure. Because I think we're trying to measure the behavior of people who we can't really ourselves quantify, like how they feel. We're going to find out. Like the market will dictate this one way or the other in the years to come.
And I'm not saying it'll be perfect. I do think there's going to be a lot of bullshit. Like my biggest concern is we just have 10 years where nothing works because they doubled their profit margins to make things work 20% worse, but they doubled their profit margins because people aren't working. Like, I'm worried about that for sure. I just don't think it's going to be the best or the worst case scenario. I guess that's what I don't think it's going to be the worst case scenario. You're seeing companies sort of failed. The Coca-Cola ad is a joke. I mean, it's insane how much money they spent to make just not. And I said this on a podcast. I'm like, couldn't they have just paid like Ryan Gosling $10 million to drink Coca-Cola, and that would get people to drink it? You don't need any stuff. Just put them in a potato sack in a room. Like, I just, like, all this money, I do believe, is largely being, not all of it, some of the AI will work out and it'll be good, but half of it, or most of it, seems to be a waste of money. And people are fine. When I see it, Sam Altman's company starting to fall apart, I start to get bullish that people are waking up a bit here, I guess is what I'm saying.
Well, I think that there was this, from a more layman's perspective, it just seems like there was an overemphasis of what this could do for you. And what you hear from a lot of different vendors, especially, is like people incorporate, they pay potentially a 5 or 6 figure monthly fee for Claude, and then they realize no one's using it, or like people are trying to wedge it and force it in. I'll even say, like, I felt I have lawyers that do things for me, like and I was trademarking something recently, and one of them used AI to like show me what something can look like in some way or whatever, and I was like, I didn't say anything because I want to have a good relationship with them and I like them, but part of me was like, yeah, this is you being told by someone internally, everyone wants to see you use AI. Got to use AI. These guys that I've worked with for years that have never even mentioned it before. And I'm like, this it seems to be paying the bills of half of these places. And once this all crumbles, because you realize it really has no purpose in lots of different ways, and in the ways that it'll be most useful, it's like you said with Gemini. Gemini is useful because it's just on Google.
Yep.
Like they're killing everyone's web traffic, but they don't give a shit because Google.
They were all ready, to be fair.
What'd you say? I'm sorry.
They were already, to be fair. They were already stealing. And I really think websites, well, you were at the forefront.
I was on a web 1.0 company, nonetheless. Like, it's we had people that were like making a lot of money just to figure out how we can be better on search engines and shit. It was like totally different world. But so I agree with you where, like, I think some of this will work out. It's like any other industry. There were 1 million car companies in America in the early 1900s. Mm-hmm. Like, you hear about all these companies all the time, and motorcycle companies and stuff. And you're like, what? Like, what is that? Like this 1926 whatever. And then it's like, yeah, but eventually it became Ford and GM, and all these guys kind of, stayed around. And so it'll be the same thing with AI, I'm sure.
Compressor iBlocks writes in and says, I know once you factor in inflation, console pricing has remained relatively the same since PS3, but compounding with other things, it still feels horrible, if not worse, as it makes the rise in console prices seem unfair to a lot of people. Are we going to see a future where consoles stop chasing market share and install base past a certain threshold and go for the margins? Is there a business model you guys think they could adopt to help with consumer costs? Xbox tried this with Game Pass plus Xbox combo for 2 years. I personally didn't see much backlash. Well, now it's $30. I push back on this pro consumer Game Pass narrative because they were always going to jack up the price on the other end. But it says PS6 plus PS Plus Premium over 24 months in the future. Yeah, and so I wonder what you think, but my answer to his question is, it's kind of like, and this is another weird reference, but like I've recently listened to some podcasts where like they're talking about what can we do to strengthen the U.S. government? Do we need a fourth branch and this? And it all eventually is a Rube Goldberg machine to no, Congress needs to do its job. Like if it just did, like none of these problems would really, and we keep finding ways to go around that without just actually, that's what you need to fix. I would say all of this broken gaming pricing, what's broken is the cost to make games. That's what's broken. And devs need to figure that out. And a big example I have is how can RE9 have taken less time to make than all of these other games, look better than all these other games, and have a smaller budget than all these other games, and everyone loves it? Like, what is that studio doing right that other studios aren't doing? Like, why is Elden Ring, like, what was it, like a $100 to $200 million game that, I don't even think it was that. Like, it's half the cost of an Assassin's Creed and sells 10 times better.
Yeah, I mean, part of it is that it's being made in Japan, and it's just so much cheaper.
It seems the Japanese know what they're doing more so. Yes.
Well, they pay their people like shit. I mean, but it also is comparable to the cost of living there. Like, a person might make $2,000 a month working as a graduate at Bandai Namco or something. So it's like they're getting paid peanuts. And I think that's why, like, what everyone was making fun of, and I was too, like that new Pokemon game's budget was like $8 million or something like that. It's like, I'm like, that's probably Naughty Dog's fucking, that's probably like their catering budget for like their dinners. So yeah, that I think matters as well. But I think you're right in that, like the finances of the industry are all upside down. More in that, I think people don't see value where their value is pretty clear. And I think that the race to the bottom has really hurt video games in a way, just from an optical point of view. It's kind of wild, for instance, that a person might take umbrage with paying $60 or $70 for a game like Elden Ring, but they'll go and bring their girlfriend to a movie. And it's like, Elden Ring is going to keep you busy for like 100 hours. It's probably also a lot better than half of the movies you're going to go see. You're going to pay all this money to go see that. People, I feel like, because of the free alternatives and because of the race to the bottom and that vacuum, it's like a planet or a star going around a black hole. It's like you're always going to have this gravitational pull towards the lowest common denominator, and it's going to make everything seem, especially when there are high quality games there, which there are. And so it makes it seem like everything's kind of a ripoff. And I think gaming exists in that sort of middle space there, where really, and I say this all the time, it's like games are comically cheap, even at the high end. Like that you're paying $60 or $70 for a AAA game is hysterical. I don't know what and people are like, well, the cost of living this and this. And I'm like, I know, I get it. Like,
but that's not Sony's fault, you know?
Right. It's like they charged you $50 for Twisted Metal in 1995. That game, as we know from Jaffe's mouth, cost $400,000 to make. They charged you $50 for that game. Go play it now. I mean, I did a whole show about the original Twisted Metal. It's a really cool game, but it's like very rudimentary and it's not very good, you know? And then you look at, and it's like, how dare you charge me $70 for Intergalactic, right? And it's like, are you fucking blind? Like, I understand if this is not necessarily what you want, but you don't think that there's like a requisite value. This game today is cheaper than Twisted Metal was. With literally, it costs 500 times more to make. You know, like it to me, to me, that's where, like, there are people that work at Naughty Dog at high levels that make what Twisted Metal's budget was as their salary. You know, and to me, I'm like, well, is that money well spent? Isn't it? That's a whole different question. The answer is like, or the bigger thing rather is, what's the end product and what are we paying for this? And I find there being a real disconnect at the end of all things about like the incredible high value of video games, like the almost infinite level of value in them. And like you can buy MLB The Show for $60 or $70 or NBA 2K or whatever, and just play sports seasons over and over again. Like that could be all you do. That could be like pennies per hour by the time you're done with it. I think
I'm checking. I've played Age of Empires for 1,015 hours
right,
on my PC.
Like you can't watch a movie for 1,000 hours.
No.
You probably should. I mean, over maybe your lifetime, you can listen to a record 1,000 times. But like,
sure.
I don't know. So to me, and that's why I always kind of looked a little dubiously at the whole, like you're saying, like the value of Game Pass and all these things. And I'm like, value is not really what I'm looking for, if I'm being honest with you. What I'm looking for is experience. It's experiential. And like, what is going to give me the biggest bang for my buck? And I look at my hundreds of dollars a month Comcast bill, and I look at all these streaming services asking me for $20 or $30 a month. And I'm like, well, this is a pretty good deal. And that's where I think the disconnect is. And I don't understand it. I don't understand it. I always want to pay as little as possible for things, but I don't understand why people don't get that we're paying like kind of an arbitrarily low price for a lot of games.
Yeah, I don't know. I think, this is where I've seen some hot takes in the Morris Law Said Discord, like about like the Steam sale is great and all, but has this programmed a lot of people to not want to spend more than $5 for a 100-hour game that's almost photorealistic? I mean, I don't know. And they're going to have to find a way. Again, I think what it comes down to is next gen. It's Sony's for the taking in general, because PC gamers are pissed. I'm a mostly PC podcast, but I see people in the comments saying and again, I heard this on your show. Even though I game on PC, I just got the PlayStation 5 Pro before the price increase, because I'm sorry, it's basically a $1,200, $1,500 PC. Even at $900, it's actually kind of a fair deal. And like all of them are interested in PS6 because they know if they can get to like 5090, which is currently 3,000, like ray tracing performance, then they're just done. They're going to go get the $700 to $900, whatever it is, PS6, and they're going to piece out a PC. And so if Sony can nail this well, a generation that's priced right with developers who are competently doing and making the games they're supposed to, and they can set up a pipeline of making games where they just cut all the nonsense out. Don't worry about supporting NVIDIA. Don't worry about supporting PS4. Only worry about PS5 if it's easy, and do it after you finish the PS6 game. Don't worry about hard drives, all that. Like maybe they can cut down the cost and just churn out more $30 high quality games. And if they did that and they were exclusives, I just think it's over. Of course, my worry would be more games of service. They charge too much. They have no idea how to make a good game anymore. AI slop. But I can see the best and the worst case scenario. And I'm really hoping for the best.
Yeah, me too. I think it's going to be very interesting. Again, I think the handheld is going to be a big part of this, and that's what I'm most excited about. I'll get both the console and the handheld, but I think we'll see. I'm the most valuable, though anecdotal evidence I get about the way things are is just by hearing from the audience and getting hopefully a barrage of global audience interaction where it's like, well, how do you feel about this? And how do you feel about this? And just kind of getting the most holistic picture of the ecosystem. And this is a very uncertain and strange time because I feel like Sony doesn't really have any goodwill right now, which is another really important.
Which is another reason why I think they have to be aggressive. They need the goodwill back.
Yeah, they have to earn, like they've used it. Everyone's happy and fine generally, or it's steady, but they don't have, I kept referring to the idea of political capital. How like you earn it and store it, and they've used it. They stored it and they used it. They had a lot of goodwill from the PS4 and PS5 era.
Isn't that fascinating? Even though they easily won this gen, it still feels almost like the end of the PS3 gen, where they really do need to win people back though with the following generation.
Right, and I think I think you're going to see a very strong boom, 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 boom of games going into PS6 on PS5 as they clear the deck. And I think it will get people back around. Plus, Grand Theft Auto is going to be absolutely huge for the console. So it'll be absolutely massive for the console, I think. So very excited about that as well. But yeah, we'll see how it all plays out.
One final thing I want to bring up before maybe a reader mail here, just to tie it all up. And it's something that I danced around getting to, but I decided I do want to put this leak in this episode. And I never found a perfect time to bring it up. And I wonder if you've seen this discussed in your Discord, but I see people say PS6 handheld and they go, does it run PS5 games? Does it run PS4 games? Does it run PS6 games? And I keep saying, like in a YouTube, I'll reply, it's a PS6. I say PS6 handheld, not because it's its own, it's a PS6. Like it's a, and what I want to leak today though, is just this thing, just to type some of the things we've talked about. Cause I think it's safe enough for me. This document's now, well, I won't say exactly how old, years old. And it directly shows Canis, that is the APU for the handheld. It says graphics, it says backwards compatibility support. And another part of this doc, it literally says, oh, there, back compat, PS4, PS5. Just says it right there. And I just want to leak this today. The PS5, the PS6, yes, it has backwards compatibility to 4 and 5. And they explicitly say it all over the place. And even the handheld, they explicitly say it runs PS6, PS5, and PS4 games. And again, I think that's important just to make this very explicit to people, because when I talk about a PS6S or this handheld that's going to be cheaper, I need to make it clear, yes, it will play your PS4 games, right? Like we're talking about people worrying about this. So I don't know. I apologize. I didn't have a good time I should have probably brought this up in the middle of a different conversation, but I sent it to you too. I think you saw it.
No, I'm looking at it now. Yeah.
And you can see right there, low power for the EU. There it is. Like they're worried about regulation in the EU apparently.
Yeah. And I think EU is the biggest PlayStation market too. So they want to play as carefully as possible there. But it's funny because as a more layman person with tech, there was no question in my mind that these things would be like, that's a non-starter at this point. You can't do that. Like
I think people are still burned by the PS3 thing, right? And they just think that it's hard, but it's not. It's very easy now after moving to
right, because they all share this kind of similar architecture. So to me, it's not, I don't want to say a no-brainer. It's just like you can't. Like that's like you can't even. No, of course not. I would bet everything on that. So, because like how can you? God, imagine if they did that. Then it's like, how could you possibly hope to sell it? Like you need a back. It's why the Steam Deck is so interesting. If you're going after, and even the Switch too, if you're going after this market, then you have to understand part of what makes it work is like this kind of ethereal library of games that goes with you through generations. It's so that's great news. I mean, and we'll see. I mean, again, I have a hard time even believing there are going to be that many PS6 games, but we'll find out.
Yeah. And a funny thing, that PS6 Foundation, like I recently put out, and I think you talked about it briefly on your show. Like it is funny too to just see like in the back end, they're like literally like programming games now to work on the handheld 2 years before it even comes out. And it's just like, I get some of these developers are messaging me like they have different assets and textures for low power mode that makes absolutely no, like it's hilarious. Like that Sony is like, this is going to be a big push of next gen. Like they want it to go off flawlessly. I don't know if we've ever seen this before where like 2 years before it comes out, they're already putting the software into the current games to work well with it. So I think that's also tells you they're going to take this gen. Again, I think people are like, oh, it's weird. How are they going to handle it? Everything I'm seeing is they are taking this very seriously. And I think they know this is the gen where like PlayStation recaptures enthusiasm, or this is the generation where no one really cares about consoles anymore. Like, and they can't let that happen to their bottom line. They just can't.
I think you're right in that. I think the marketing push is going to be this aggressive duality between the handheld and the console. That you can do one or you can do the other. You can do both. And here's how they talk and blah, 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 blah. And I assume it'll be January or February, right? That they'll announce it. You can't say anything until after Christmas, right? You need one more Christmas.
Yeah, you don't want to do Christmas.
You need to keep things as ambiguous as possible. Certainly through Grand Theft Auto. And then
yes. And I think they'll have a big Black Friday sale. Like and all of a sudden a $550 PS5 will look good, like, or a $500 one or something. Even
I was saying that's so funny you say that. I'm like, the one upside to these price increases is they can have like these dramatic price decreases that will be attractive, even though it's like, oh, it's the same price that it was.
Yeah. So I don't know when they'll announce it. I think it's very different than Xbox. With Xbox, they have to announce things early because not even just gamers, like game devs are like, reaching out to me like, do you think there will be, like, should I even write my game for Xbox? Like they had to tell them there will be another one so that people even just keep supporting the Series X. With Sony, and I actually answered this on a recent podcast or live stream, I think, Like someone was like, when will they announce it? Like, what about pricing? I'm like, I don't think they can announce it until they know what this thing's going to cost. And they might not know that until like Q2 of next year. That's the problem is I don't like, cause they're in a position of strength. Don't you think they really can't announce this thing until they know exactly what it is and what it's going to cost, or it could backfire like Steam Machine.
Totally. I also wonder if they could use, if they're willing to subsidize or really cut down to even. So, really bring the cost down. I wonder if they can kind of play off of, announce it without a price, and then play off of the expectations of a high price, knowing that they're going to like come and kill the price.
Because if they announce even $700, I think at this point people are going to be surprised. And if they went for $600, which PS3 price,
it's like an unholy price. It's going to be.
It'd be hilarious if they just did 600 to prove they can do 600. I would laugh at that.
So yeah, they could like play on people's expectations a little bit and maybe have a little bit of an interesting marketing plan that could blow up a little bit in their face, but be like, yeah, let's just announce it, show it, let people speculate. We'll assume based on our study that the speculation will be of these prices, and we'll hit it at this price. And that could be a good way to get going. But I'm sure we'll have many more episodes on both here and Sacred Plus in the couple of years to come in between now and then, though. So,
all right.
The final comes out. Of course.
Final question. Curry King 3 writes in, what type of hypothetical game type or project would you like to see next gen hardware attempt to tackle? What limitations do you see in modern games that you think could be addressed in regards to graphics, audio, interactivity, or game logic, even if it is strictly hypothetical, and assume publishers are willing to fund this avant-garde thing? Is there anything revolutionary you could imagine coming, or do you think we may see primarily or exclusively iterative games and projects?
You know where my mind goes on this immediately, and I've talked about this a lot, that I feel like this game could live again, is PlayStation Home. And now, PlayStation Home wasn't for me. Like, it was never for me. I'm not going to pretend that it was. But it was a really good idea. And it's one of those ideas that is too early. It happens constantly. We always bring up On Live and all these things, like these things that, like, if they were just a little later or just did things a little bit differently. This idea of having like a hub world, I think is that it's kind of like a meta universe of all of your IP and interactive third parties and all of the rest. And you can just kind of live there and be there and microtransact. I mean, in a major way there, I would assume. I feel like that could be like a really cool thing. It would be, you know how PS4 and PS5 came with, the Astrobot style, tutorial games, which are cool. Vita even came with a tutorial game called Welcome Park. But yes, it would be interesting if PS6, and it's not going to, but it was, in a hypothetical, it'd be, or it was updated at some point to have like this thing that was like, it was PlayStation Home or PlayStation Life or whatever they wanted to call it. And it just is this thing that existed on the console that was kind of a meta game in which you used it to interact almost with the console. If you wanted to, you could of course use menus and just keep things standard. Something that would be baked in and available to everyone, and could be really dynamic. I think would be really, really fun and interesting, because I do think you're going to see otherwise a lot of iterative. You're going to see better shooters. You're going to see more immersive role-playing games, and you're going to see games with hundreds of hours of quests. And eventually, as we were saying, games with AI generated quests. And I think things are just going to get bigger. I don't know if that's necessarily good for the economics of games, but it'll be good for the winners of that game, those particular, the 4 or 5 that make the dominant game, as it is right now. Sony makes half of its money on 10 games. Mm-hmm. So it goes to show you how that's incredible. That's one of the most incredible stats, in my opinion, is half of their revenue comes from just 10 games.
A PlayStation Home-like thing that is actually cool to the people that would use it, and is exclusive to PS6, could be another thing as well. Because I feel like next gen, they're going to have to find a way to just make it feel like it used to feel, from PS1 to 2, Xbox to 360. Whoa, there's now these blades organized on the 360. Like, oh my God, like everything's just different and new. Like, they need having an app like that exclusive to PS6 with a handheld, with all this other stuff, like at the same time, might make it feel more like how new gens used to feel. So I think that might be smart for that reason. And in terms of like what's the next avant-garde thing? I mean, the obvious thing is making a game where the decisions are basically preordained by the developers. They're not randomly hallucinated by AI, but a game where there's a mic in every PS controller, right? I mean, you can just talk to the person in Fallout 5 and the person knows what you mean. And it could be even things that get up to hijinks, like, hey, let's go raid that camp. And he's like, okay, like, I hate those guys. Yeah. Like, and then you go and you fight them. I also thought of a wild card idea, like for GTA. Well, I guess not 6, but some open world game, maybe GTA 7 on the PS9, whenever the heck that comes out, I guess, actually. But some open world game, most of the NPCs, you wouldn't want them to be AI, because that would just cause too much chaos. But maybe you have 1% of them actually be able to make their own decisions and be like, this guy stole a car on my street again this month. And then he just starts shooting at you. He's like, I keep seeing you steal from a, like, you could do stuff like that I think would be like, you just can't do that on the other gens, and it'd be a lot of fun. But, and then the other place it goes is, I really think using these streamlined tools to remaster the remaining PS3, Vita, and PS2 games is just, come on. Like, it would be so easy to have Nixes just sit there and update things very quickly and just have the Killzone package, the Resistance package, and all of that come to PS6. That I think me and you talked about that before. I think that if you had a generation where there's like, a couple new launch games that are exclusive to PS6, but then 20 PS3 games remastered with path tracing in 4K, that a ton of people, probably a lot of PS3 or PS4 holdouts, would go, okay, I'm upgrading. They finally have a mountain of things that I just can't play on my current console.
Yeah, having a solution for that would be nice. That's really the last hanging thread. As far as, Vita availability makes that those games aren't available makes sense because of all the input stuff. But like the PS3 stuff is becoming frustrating, and I think they'll have a solution for that. I don't know if it'll be only for PS6, but I know that the guys that do the Syrup engine have been like working on it apparently. So
working on what?
The guys that do like the implicit conversions, I think they're called. They're like the company that does a lot of the porting for PlayStation, and they're apparently like working on a PS3 engine of some sort, like a port like solution.
Like a kind of factory, we can start streamlining.
Yeah, like
games.
they apparently released this. Not apparently, they did. They released a thing where it's like their roadmap, and it's like, this is what we're doing now, and this is what we're doing tomorrow, and like in the long term, they're like, we're working on this. Like, this is a thing that's like very much a priority. They'd make a lot of money if they did that, because a lot of games are sealed off there. Everyone knows that, so that would be nice.
That's really exciting. I didn't know that. So cool. All right. I think that's enough. As always, you are one of the guests where we go on the longest.
Yeah, I'm sorry if this is very Sacred Symbols style.
No, but
another 2 hours onto it, and we'll get a Sacred Symbols episode.
But it also moves the fastest. I really enjoy our conversations. It doesn't feel like almost like a 2.5 hour conversation at all.
Not at all.
But please, one more time at least, plug yourself. Tell everybody where to find you or anything you want them to find.
Sure. Well, thank you for having me. It was good to see you. Thank you for everyone out there receiving me here. It's always good to be amongst this audience, and you guys have always been really nice to me, so I appreciate it. Last Stand Media is my company, and we do a bunch of podcasts, video game podcasts. My podcast is Sacred Symbols, which is the PlayStation podcast. Everything's available for free that we do. We stream on our YouTube channel and stuff like that too. And my studio, Lilymo, our next game, Saint Slayer, which is a Castlevania-style 8-bit game. We make old school games only. That's coming out April 20th. So we're really excited about that, and we hope that does well. That's been occupying a lot of my time recently. So it's good to talk about the industry a little bit, get away from all that. So thanks again for having me. It was good to see you. Yeah,
you do make a lot of really cool retro style games that I'm sure gives you a ton of insight into the industry, just being able to make them yourself. But, really good April Fool's joke would be if you announced like an AI slop looking game that's just like, and then like you just made the trailer look entirely like you've sold out, like the complete counter to everything you've been saying, and then just out of nowhere you're like, and here is our 3D neural rendered game using all AI, and just see who buys it.
The audience would love that. That is a funny idea. I do come up with good ideas for April Fools sometime and never execute on them. That was the one advantage about working at IGN all the time, was there was like a machine that would make sure we'd have a good April Fool's joke. But yeah, it's we're excited about this next game. We hope people enjoy it. If you're into old school NES and SNES style games, that's what we make. So you'll come check us out.
Well, there will be a link in the description where you can find that stuff, everybody. And then, of course, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Like the video, share the video, comment down below. Give us hype points. Apparently, that's a thing now on mobile. And please make sure you're subscribed to Moore's Law Z on YouTube and ring the bell button. Check out Broken Silicon on your podcast app of choice. Consider joining the Patreon to ask guests like Colin questions. And consider joining Colin's Patreon as well. Just get questions too. But thank you for coming on, Colin. And yeah, once again, everybody, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And have a good week. This podcast was brought to you by the YouTube channel and website Moore's Law is Dead. Moore's Law is Dead and Broken Silicon are trademarks of their creator, Tom. That guy is me, and I am indeed the creator, editor, writer, and showrunner of Moore's Law is Dead podcasts, videos, articles, and other media. However, it's not just me. Moore's Law is Dead is a team, with Broken Silicon co-hosted by my brother Dan, audio editing by Gerard Cortez, renders being done by the industrial designer Jean-Philippe Clermont, and special assistance is also provided by Carbon Cry and Carrie No Sugata as well. Find all of our information at www.mooreslawsdead.com on the About/Support page in the event you do want to hire me for consulting work, hire Gerard for audio work, hire Jean-Philippe for industrial design work, or you're interested in working with Carbon Cry or Carrie No Sugata as well. You can also find our long-term sponsors on that page if you want to show them some love for putting food on our tables. Or you can also mail us some love. You can send letters or hardware donations to the following address: Moore's Law is Dead, P.O. Box 60632 in Nashville, Tennessee, zip code 37206. Although, to be honest, the best way to show Moore's Law is Dead some love is to support us on Patreon. Patrons are what makes Moore's Law is Dead content truly possible. Every month, and really every day, depending on who you're talking about, me, Gerard, Dan, and Jean-Philippe are working tirelessly to provide a steady stream of content that we could not keep doing unless we knew the work was possible without being reliant on sponsors dictating every little thing we put out. Don't get us wrong, we love our sponsors, but we love directly working for you, our fans, much more. If you have any extra money, even a couple free dollars a month, consider supporting us directly on Patreon. Those couple of monthly dollars will get you access to the exclusive podcast Die Shrink, voting on subjects of future podcast episodes, the ability to ask guest questions, and of course, access to the Moore's Law is Dead Discord full of like-minded people who I am sure would love to meet you. I am one of them. Additionally, higher tiers get access to early, ad-free episodes of Broken Silicon, the ability to ask questions in all Broken Silicon episodes and Loose Ends live streams ahead of the recording, and the entire back catalog of Moore's Law is Dead podcasts, in addition to having thanks in the credits of videos and podcasts depending on the tier, with other perks available as well. And hey, if you cannot afford to support us directly every month, please do share Moore's Law is Dead videos and podcasts with friends and family, and on social media and websites like Reddit, and give Broken Silicon a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or your preferred podcast app of choice. All of this does really help us so much. But like I said, this podcast would not be possible without the patrons directly providing predictable and reliable support every month. And so now it is time to give a personal thanks to the greatest of the fans. The following supporters are at the 10 gigahertz or higher supported levels: Brad Medlin, Drita Foles, Z Jits, Daniel D, Nicholas Buckner, Deke, Aaron Close, Jen Rauner, MJB1, Daniel Hyde, GZ Ziggy, SNES Chalmers, Jerem Ferriera, Velcom Alev, Jensen Wang, Sarcastro, Chris Rich, Evan Dingle, Compressed iBlocks, Halbuma, Shredbird, Semi Malas, Chris Anthenos, Jonathan, Tommy, Jake Dude 23, Jake Martin, Zlicky, Gamers Unite, Winwang, Ian Clifford, Meat and Pork, Tim Robb, Travis Gooding, Zoot Suit Taylor, Mads, Greg, Michael McGee, Stephen Coates, My Amiable Chief, Mark Mitchell, Aisha, James Anderson, Mark Raidmaker, Matthew Cassell, Salty Internet Pirate, Henry Zhang, Wesley Sager, Cameron, Michelle Pell, Huxapuma, Teak Autumn, Reginald Ari, Little Journey, Win Star, James I. Raider Shea, Dan M. 1988, Milton, Brett Jones, Chuck Glidden, Stephen Dick, Mac Daffy, Justin Bussell, Oscar and Haggerty, Joe Fitt, Brian Wright, Ryan Scanlon, Hardland, Slushball, Jensen Eng, Game of the Forbidden Juice, RB Racer, Bing Bong 3, John Swin, Solarized 80, Elber Gun, Kikum, Thalo 215, Sprutnik, Brian P, Cornster 671, Penta Winter, Omega Doge, Huger, Ander Kiwi, Smash Axley, Mr. Tiger, John Wick, Boomstick, Penguins, Love AI, Porcelain Oats, Kareem Al Masri, Rye Hill, Cheap Bulls, AI Soldier 789, Manolis, Ragkusis, Kevin Kuntz, Bespoke EP, Jonathan Harris, Dominic Pesseri, Fred Berger, Kainush, Kagani, Zabir Ahmed, Johnny Trans, Arkeo, RK0, Dudester, John Tiberius, Mirika, Ian, OMG, Clover, and of course, thank you to Sahara for the music.